Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Star Wars. I'm Retty4, this is Grey Jedi 91.
Hello.
This is Evan Nova 95.
Hello.
This is Jen Sarai 1.
Hello there.
And this is Antoine Bandele.
What's up? I love how he comes right up to his mic to say that. That's really funny.
What, Connor or me?
No, Connor.
I was going to say, leans
Matt,
in for it.
What are we doing today? What's happening today?
Oh, I think it's part 4 of Revenge of the Sith, but I've kind of lost track at this point.
We've had like 5 intros now.
Yeah. So part 4, Revenge of the Sith. I like to call this just the main event because we've been doing all this build up basically to the main event. This is this is like when all of the shit hits the fan. Basically, that's what the book is. And we're picking up where we left off. I guess with do we want to recap what happened with Sidious and Anakin, or are we jumping right into the business on Utapau with Grievous?
Just jump straight into the business of Utapau, yeah. It's
okay.
just Kenobi and Grievous, effectively, and his approach to Grievous as well.
Thoughts on this?
Well,
Connor, start off. I know you got thoughts.
Yeah.
all right. Well, in the novelization, we actually have a pretty extended preamble where Kenobi gets into an extended engagement with Grievous's 4 Magna Guards before engaging with Grievous, whereas in the movie, he just immediately crushes them with the cargo container. And it's one of those instances where I'm actually conflicted on which version I prefer, because the fight scene is badass, and the internal monologue really gives you a really good idea as to how Kenobi approaches things. But in the movie, that crushing them with the cargo container was just so damn clever. And it was just such a direct approach, and from Kenobi's perspective, very efficient. So it was really in keeping with his character, and because of that, I don't know which way I swing on this.
Well, I think part of it might have to do with the fact that the book's version would have been kind of difficult to put to film because, all the droids firing at once and all the acrobatics he does and upper rafters with the spider droids and all that would have been pretty tricky with the CG.
You do realize that pretty much the entirety of everything that went down on Utapau was just Ewan McGregor running around in front of a blue screen, right?
Yeah.
Well, still though, it doesn't make it any less difficult to pull off the angles.
The droids were pretty much just standing during that sequence.
But
you didn't actually have to make a move.
I'm of kind of two minds about it. I like you. I like the inner monologue of the situation. But we've also had quite a lot of build up to this fight already. Just with the preamble of him, calling on the Force, of his assessment of the situation, and to an but at the same time, with the film, it's kind of blasé how he just walks in and just one wave of a hand and that's it, problem solved.
That's right, kind of, yeah.
Because the book version has it be a lot more realistic, but also it doesn't take away from the gravitas of the situation. He's being casual, go with the flow Kenobi, but he's still putting the effort in. So I think I lean in favor of the book.
Okay.
This isn't like a scene that I particularly have any strong thoughts on, especially because overall it's fairly similar to what you get like on screen. It's not drastically different in its depiction for me. And it's far from my favorite sequence in either the book or the film. But I do like the flashback that happens where Mace explains to Kenobi why he thinks he's perfect for the job. Because at the time that I read that, I didn't have much knowledge about the different lightsaber forms and like the whole idea that, Yoda uses this form because he's short and old and it compensates for that. I go, what? There's a method to the madness here? That's crazy. I just that was like the start of like my nerd journey with that. So I have nostalgia for that moment myself.
Well, also it helps too because with Labyrinth of Evil, he actively fought Grievous, and there was a point where he's like, "Oh my God, it's not exactly a pod, but it's pretty goddamn similar. I don't want to continue this." So he's like, for Obi-Wan, and again, like he was saying, he was prefacing by that, saying like, "Oh, that's my weakness. That's why I use it. Yoda has that weakness, but for you, why are you using it? Like, you're just you. You are simplicity itself, and there's no because of that. When you do face Grievous, you're probably the best one to do it because there's no you're not compensating for anything. Yeah.
It helps.
Well, the funny thing is, though, is that I actually do see Kenobi's mastery of Surisu as compensating for something, because what I've kind of noticed is almost a trend with Kenobi's whole development is that he keeps on getting dumped into situations where he's not completely outclassed, but he's in over his head just a little bit. And the whole point behind his mastery of Sarisu is that it allows him to hold on, stay alive, and, somehow survive this. Yet he kept on doing this over and over and over again for so many years that he basically just turned into the one Jedi who is the absolute best at just surviving, just scraping by, to the point where he's basically just got it down to an art form. And that's what makes him the best Jedi to take on Grievous, because if you've got 4 frickin' buzzsawing lightsabers coming at you, who do you want to put in front of that? The Jedi who's going to rush in, guns blazing, try and meet it head to head, only to get hacked apart? Or the Jedi who knows how to stay alive?
It's the part of the book that I like for that reason, because it explains why he was sent. Basically, it doesn't just say that it's just one random Jedi we threw at the problem when we could have sent multiple ones. It gives the validation towards why he's the best equipped. And as it says in one of the later chapters following this scene, he himself is aware of how the Force kind of puts things in his lap sometimes. He'll just be dropped into a situation cold, and it'll just happen to work out for him. So it fits that he puts so much faith in the Force, because outside of his lightsaber combat style, he does have that kind of go with the flow, I'll just let the Force handle things, mentality, and that's what makes him so proficient in Sarisu, because he can give himself over to the living Force ways that most of the Jedi can't. They're just not. It's not in their kind of DNA to do that.
Do you want to?
The actual fight just kind of pans out. As you said, Matt, it's much the same as the film. There aren't really that many deviations worth noting outside of just action beats that don't require too much diving in. I like, as with all of the action in this book, I do like the description, the prose. It's all very effective. I never found myself particularly bored outside of the. I mean, we mentioned before that it's not as interesting or engaging to us as the drama and narrative elements, because of the fact that it doesn't deviate from the film that much. But
for me anyway, for me it's not. Like
it's just a case of where what you see in the film is more easily translatable and straight into the book, so it's less new material, if you know what I mean. It's one of the reasons I appreciate the fact that the book omits quite a lot from this last section. For example, Yoda escaping Kashyyyk. You don't need to see that, because anyone who's reading this pretty much has watched the film. It fills those blanks in for you.
I don't want to bog it down and create in negativity, but for me, Grievous was just, when I saw in my Revenge of the Sith experience, it's like I didn't like the scenes with him in it. They created such high expectations with him before the film came out that it just didn't live up for me. So this is stuff that I just kind of pass over. Even in the books, it kind of moves
downhill ever since.
It's definitely no labyrinth, Grievous, that's for sure.
Yep. The one thing I will say, just going back to the way Grievous works by analyzing an opponent's fighting style and emulating it, is Kenobi is the one opponent where that isn't an advantage. Because
all you're doing is like you're going to replicate defense. What is that? And that's the reason why it leads into the way he defeats him is by intercepting not his blade but his hand. And it's like, Grievous can't really calculate that, because that's not something he's used to, like the offensive stuff. So that's why he can do like a deal with the Mace, but with the Kenobi, it's like, what the hell? What do I just like stop and just start defending myself? But that doesn't do anything. I need to like attack this guy. So totally.
It's the purity of it. It's the fact that there aren't any integral, rather precise mechanics to just interrupt and work through it. He's constantly on the offensive. So Kenobi's light jabs and parries and retaliations aren't really a great sequence of moves that he can interrupt and turn to his favor. He's the one worrying about slipping up rather than exploiting any slip ups that Kenobi might take or make. It's a difficult thing to fight with when you're used to building your entire style on the dissection of others, when it's just such a pure defense.
And I think it's funny that we were talking about how this sequence of the book is kind of like, he just has to go through all this stuff, and then like the end of the chapter kind of validates that by saying, this is all kind of bullshit, so that he can be away from the planet, so that he can't interfere in like his final steps of converting Anakin. Like I love how the book or the chapter ends that way. It's like, this stuff is gonna be this because it's supposed to be.
He's very self-aware as ever.
Acknowledges like the sort of plot, like even like within like the story, but it kind of works because of how they're all playing into the Sith plot. But like it's almost like the Sith plot is the same as like the narrative plot. You know what I mean? Like they're blurring that line, which is one of the rare instances where I've seen that work. But actually, I am officially out of things to say on this.
I was going to say,
Anybody
yeah,
else?
the fight ends basically was on
that's
the next
exactly
point.
why I did what I did just there.
Yep.
Making
the
sure,
one thing,
just making sure. See, go ahead, Connor.
I got one little thing to say. I love how the worst condemnation that Obi-Wan Kenobi can summon up from the depths of his vocabulary is the word uncivilized. That is the closest he'll ever come to cursing you out.
And he got it from Boga as well. It wasn't even him.
Boga.
Kind of, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Good old Boga. I got more attached to that creature in the book, needless to say, than I did in the film. That's nothing I'll add to the conversation.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, in the film, it's just like, hey, Obi-Wan's riding a new toy, guys. Here, I mean, there's no.
And even if you did have the deleted scene,
that.
it really didn't have that much that you would have been
And
tied to. You do need the pros for that.
It helps that it's Kenobi as well, because he does form, those strong, not attachments, because he's the ultimate Jedi, but the strong bonds with animals, sort of. Because of the living force connection again. Going back to that, but yeah, the Grievous fight.
I do like how he points out the dynamic between his relationship with animals and Anakin. That was earlier, so I won't.
Yeah, no, that's a good point though. It's a good point.
I wasn't here for that chapter, so I just thought I'd.
Yeah, no, we didn't mention that before. So nice comment. Because especially considering all of the bestial references you get with Anakin, and as he's getting more and more primal throughout the book. It's a nice observation of Obi-Wan, and one of those things where it's the rare moments where you kind of get a peek under the hood as to his. Almost subconscious interpretation.
He kind of says it like Anakin doesn't like writing something with a mind of its own, because it kind of has to do with his need to be in control of the situation and what he's doing.
His inability to let go.
A ship can't talk back.
Yeah, an inability to let go unless it's R2.
Right.
Well, it's also, if you really want to distill it, it's an inability to trust as well.
Right.
But in any case, let's jump back over to Coruscant.
Yes, where the interesting stuff is happening.
So this is following Palpatine unveiling himself before Anakin and asking him to join him on the dark side. And he's going to give him like a little while to think about it and see how he feels about the whole dark side thing before he makes any commitments. And that's basically where we are here. Mace is conferring with Yoda about how to handle the end of the war. And it's at this stage, it's more like, okay, so we're about to win, but the Chancellor's shady. Should I arrest him? If he doesn't immediately give up his powers and do what he's supposed to do. So it's already shit's already about to hit the fan, regardless of the revelation. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense as well, because it does seem just like Mace is just ready to go, in the film. I know he has a line where he was saying that he was going to bring the news to the Chancellor about how Grievous was dead or whatever. But it seems like, did you do any preparation in the wake of Anakin's revelation to you that it's a Sith Lord? It seems like you're just going there with the same people you had anyway.
Why do you need all those people with you? Oh,
it's really awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, just grab whoever's on hand and go.
And there's zero gravitas in the film version. So, whoa. Yeah. Well, we better move quickly then if we're going to survive. There's
and that's the thing about Sam Jackson's performance, and I guess just the directing from Lucas, because Sam Jackson is one of the most emotive actors, period. And somehow George stripped that all away completely. He must have told him, "Oh, you're
of his career."
Right. It's you're the way mystical monk.
I can't remember exactly what Anakin said. I don't watch the movie. I haven't seen the movie in a while. But Anakin says what he says, he's a Sith Lord or whatever. A Sith Lord? Those are bad, aren't they? It's that's almost the tone with which he says it. It's wait a minute. I've had meetings about those, right? Those are bad. It's not.
I think there's literally saying that our worst fears have been confirmed or something weird.
It's just such a non-committal. I guess this is a thing that has happened, and we shall deal with it. And I get that. Well, I mean, obviously he wasn't working from the books, but we know from the books that he is very not emotionless. But you wouldn't know that he was having these kind of roiling displays of emotion underneath the surface, because as the book says, he's Mace Windu and he keeps it under wraps.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can show subtle ticks with this kind of thing. You can have him be that on lockdown and still see the strain kind of radiating through it, especially
Well,
at this
it's the
point.
small
in his
thing
life.
of just him like grabbing Anakin's arm and like getting in his face
Yes,
and be like,
yeah.
"What are you talking about?" But with more gravitas than just kind of being somewhat bored sounding about everything, you know? Because in the book we have this huge description about what the Republic means to him, that the revelation of Palpatine being his leader and the Sith Lord being that same leader makes him feel like his whole entire life, you know, for the past 10 years has been for naught. You don't get any kind of that emotion that we enjoy from Mace and the EU in the movies at all.
And you know,
This
the fact
is
that he's so
why-
outwardly caring for Anakin as well in this moment, it shows you how, you know, how
Yeah.
to step away from the norm, because you know
Right,
they're
because he's in
not the
hysterics.
closest people.
Anakin is
and-
in hysterics
yeah.
coming at
Anakin's
that.
in hysterics, which is rare by itself
clutching at
for those
Mace
two.
and stuff.
Yeah, and Mace is, you know, is dealing with it, so it's rare to see them out of their comfort zones and, you know, their usual relationship roles. And also, of course, we've got Mace's own shadow point ability, which is showing Anakin as no longer a kind of nexus point, as the singular point of the shattering for the
Shatter
galaxy.
point of the galaxy. That's literally that's described. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's what he is right now, and so Mace is seeing this kind of purity in his sight that he hasn't had for a very long time.
Yeah,
you know,
and they actually sort of try and give justification for him not taking Anakin, because that's something a lot of people have, you know, some people have brought up in critique of the film.
yeah,
I never thought that was like a bad call in the film. It's just not addressed.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like,
this time that's what I mean. Sorry, I meant like this time it's more so addressed.
yeah, you get some fleshing out for the you know, the actual decision he made, but
Yeah,
it's
Well,
one of
the
those
whole
ones where
chosen one
should he have
thing-
done or not, you know, because I completely understand why he
right.
didn't, but chance wise,
I mean, I think this reinforces why he didn't. Like, I mean, it's I like it because it's ironic, because these two, I wouldn't call them outright enemies, but they both view each other as obstacles to getting what they want, or
frenemies.
or rather they see them as threats to what they value most. You know, Mace is actively in Anakin's way. They like to save Padme. That's the way he's thinking of it. Like, I'm not granted mastery. I need it to, you know, save my wife, blah, blah. And like Mace is like, you're like this unstable element. I'm trying to preserve like the galaxy. You know, you're fucking everything up, or you could, like, you know, that kind of thing. In this moment, is charged with irony, because Mace leaves him by out of concern for him and the galaxy, but it's out of like concern, you know. So it's not no, you're a shitty chosen one and you'll fuck everything up. It's you're in no fit state to come with me today. You know, like you need to stay. And I like that, because Mace is such a, I don't want to call him unfeeling, like we were saying, but like he's ostensibly cold, but like it's yeah, but it doesn't. It comes from like a place of like duty, you know. And I really like this. It's a very short passage. It's only like 3 pages or something like that. But just the you can almost see like the mental montage of like the events of Harun Call, or just like going back to Geonosis, just everything that not just he but all the other Jedi have been through, and that realization that it has all been for nothing. You know, like that's you feel it in a way that I just don't think you can just from the films. You know, like the material's just not present on screen in that way for me.
And even if it decided to work with the scene itself more, we didn't have any of the history. You know, people who are watching the film don't know about Harun Cole. They don't know about the fact that this character has felt the weight of the entire galaxy on his shoulders for so long that even he, you know, one of the greatest Jedi Masters in history, is starting to, you know, feel the cracks emerging. So to have him kind of not break under the strain, although he does for a split second here, notably, he's you know, he's the outburst of emotion and concern, and all the decisions he's making, even though they are the right ones, and he isn't slipping up or anything. The kind of the lack of smoothness and just slipping into his role as he would for any other matter, it strikes you as you know, just adds gravitas. I mean, to say nothing of the rest of the situation, you know, he locks down the temple. You know, for example, it's a small detail, but the temple goes on to complete lockdown, which we haven't seen thus far. And you know, that tells you how bad the situation is from their eyes. They're worried about retaliation from the Sith.
That's another thing the book, you know, improves on that. They didn't just leave the temple completely defenseless.
Yeah, they left it with Shakti in charge.
Wasn't necessarily the
down.
best defense they could have put up, but it was something. Working within their constraints.
There were like hardly any masters there.
That's what I mean.
at
Working within their constraints.
So, yeah, but they don't. In the film, like he just goes right, like right after Anakin says that. But like in this, like he even has a conversation with Yoda, like you know about so are we cool? Like, you know, like should I go ahead and do I have the go ahead to do this? We're
just waiting on your vote. So you know, he still asked the council about this. He hasn't just made unilateral decisions that could doom the order, because he's Mace. He's not irresponsible like that.
I mean, The only thing that they could have done is like not abided by like the existing plot completely. Like, you know, like they don't really have if you're going to change their response, you'd really have to go like way off the deep end into a what if territory with like a whole different strategy for them. Because they are like from their point of view, okay, he's just like outed himself as a Sith and he's in control of the galaxy. If we don't make a move, he's going to. Like, so they're in a rock and a hard place, you know, or between, you know. So
and as we said before, he does, you know, Stover does such a great job of working within that limited framework. He can't push the boundaries too far because he has to, you know, stay within the limits of the film. And the fact that we get given as much as we do throughout this is it's miraculous to me. You know, just that small scene with Yoda, because it's a continuation of other scenes he's had in similar situations throughout the book. It just, you know, it just seems as well. Of course, he's contacted Yoda. You know, it's not just because we haven't seen it in the film necessarily. It doesn't matter. You know, it's all what you would expect, which I like. It gives a good kind of continuity to the narrative.
Jumping over to Palpatine's perspective, I like his sort of.
Well, we should do the poem too, real quick, just because.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
it's the last one we have an entire one.
This is the point where the book itself transitions into its part 3, titled Apocalypse. We've not been breaking it down by those parts because there's just so much content in each part. Because, wow. But yeah,
Into the Sith.
poem.
This is the one I think is least effective to me. Like the particular part where he talks about wood burning and things like under your table and under your sheets. I didn't see that one relating so much to like actual darkness, if that makes sense. Like the illusions he was illustrating didn't really work for me. I don't know if that was the same for you guys, but.
No, I agree. I think he was running out of poetic prose
running
at this
out of
point. I mean, how many ways can you dive into the nature of darkness without kind of repeating
Even
yourself in some way? Especially considering the previous ones were so pervasive and so, you know, they covered everything you'd want them to, basically. So he was writing himself into a corner a bit.
I think this is what you call, okay, I have a format and I have to stick with it because I've established that. So I have to have a poem, even though I have nothing really to say. But I get the idea that like, the reason why like the idea that like darkness wins is because it's everywhere. Like you can't get rid of it. And it's not actually technically the last poem. There's one more at the very end.
Yeah.
But
about the light. That's right. The camera.
Yeah, they're basically, if you want to distill these two down, they're commentaries on that cyclical nature. You can't eradicate one or the other. They keep coming back. It doesn't matter how you diminish it to like one like little iota. That's all that needs to be there for it to still exist. And it always has been that way. So I get that idea, but yeah, it's not my favorite poem. But then again, my favorite poem was like at the beginning of this.
Right.
I do like
the
setup
that everything is in the beginning.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, sorry.
I do like the setup that it does for Yoda though, because obviously his not revelation but realization that he's not able to do what he needs to do in these next few chapters is kind of a jumping off from this poem. You know, the fact that it is a case of the dark being so eternal and the way to combat it. You know, even the setup that we get from following immediately on from this poem in the first chapter, the setup of the dark being so pervasive and so, you know, every reach of a shadow that, you know, is in the galaxy, Sidious can see through. Yoda's thinking about that, and that's why he does what he does. So I like that the poem is at least connected to that narrative segment.
And I like the piece of prose too of night held the Jedi Temple. Super simple sentence, but it illustrates very well. You know, it's better than just saying like the Jedi Temple was dark. You know, like night held, like though all those words like very economical and they work really well. Yeah, and all the stuff with the Palpatine talking about waiting and everything.
Yeah, but even when Mace and company left, it was like they left bringing taking the light with them. Like it won't shine on the temple again, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah, he's really good at that kind of stuff.
Belonged entirely to the night.
Writing is often about finding the right words, not necessarily like, again, like we were talking. Well, I think we talked about this off.
You said this off camera.
Yeah, off camera. Not finding a fancy word, but finding the right words that most people in the world can identify with.
And often simplicity lends so much more power anyway. You know, even if you were someone who could understand the fancier prose, it's not necessary all the time. Simplicity and purity can blend way more weight to a statement. And I like as well that he's balancing that poetic kind of prose with the kind of more physical, mundane reality of the Jedi Temple being dark. You know, people in the city looking at the Jedi Temple right now are going to see it dark, which is not a common sight. So you know, there's the multi-leveled approach to that, with the, you know, darkness and shrouds and metaphysical with the actual just the lights are off. And Sidious is just broiling in this as well. He's just like reveling in it. It's like, ha ha.
Oh, yeah.
For once, I'm
right
actually
now.
looking forward to keeping a promise. It's all coming together.
We see him. That's when we see him retrieve his lightsaber too.
Yeah.
Is it in this first
uranium.
paragraph, or isn't it a little bit later? Because they have the Yoda.
It's a little bit
conversation.
later.
Okay.
Well,
You
what
got
do you mean?
Because
I
it's
was-
first him
I was
talking about his
skipping
promise,
ahead.
and then
Yeah.
it's them talking about I wish Yoda and Obi-Wan were here, or Kit
Oh, we're
Fisto like
going back
freaking
to that.
out.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
Yeah, well, you
and
just
then-
mentioned that they were leaving, so I thought we were going past that.
I was trying
we
to skip
could.
past that. I'm
Yeah, we
sorry.
could.
The-
I mean,
the
what
only
I
thing
thought
I-
it was
the only
If you
thing
want to
interesting
stick
though.
with this, that's fine. I'm just.
Yeah,
The reason why I want to mention it is because if I got personality from this group of people, because all we get in
Yeah.
the films for Kit Fisto is just he smiles after he shot off C-3PO's head or whatever it was in
Yeah.
the Attack of the Clones. But here you get a little bit of like him being like, you know what, I'm kind of a normal person still. Like I'm not gonna always be about Jedi. Like I would like to have
Yeah.
those two people
Well,
with us. You know what I mean?
I still say I want Yoda. It's and then it gets on the
Yeah.
ship.
Right,
You
yeah,
get
yeah.
a
Which
nice
is
little.
something to
I'll
consider
go.
because
Yeah.
out of that group, he is the youngest and least experienced compared to
And does the
Hagen.
best besides Mace,
Mace.
obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
We also get a little. He also even mentions Ord Cestus, which is a reference to Cestus, the novel Cestus Deception,
Yes, he does.
where he
does,
teamed up
'cause
with Kenobi, which is
Right.
why he used it as like on Ord Cestus, Kenobi, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, I would even
Is it
take
a
Kenobi
continuity?
in this situation.
Yeah.
Like,
Wouldn't have
anybody,
helped.
please.
Wouldn't have
Yeah, I
No,
know.
would not have helped in this one. No. But
Well,
but I like
okay.
the
No.
He wouldn't even Yoda straight up, which we'll get to later. But
yeah. But
Yeah.
I like the I like just the snapshots of it. Like you said, the fact that we get that little brief window into who they are and what the kind of
Right.
the personality styles are.
And I would love that in the
these
movie.
guys,
Like if they're in the
Yeah.
gunship and they were talking like that,
Yeah,
like, that'd be
precisely.
cool. These Jedi have personality.
just a quick moment where
You
they're all
know?
kind of
Just a
sitting
few
down,
lines.
leaning over,
All we
and
could've
feeling the stress, and
Right.
like I wish Yoda were here, and you're like, so do we all, and then cut away to the flying towards the temple. Looking out zooming out the window or something. That could have worked.
I just played that out in my brain.
Yeah.
That would have been so cool.
and of course you have Saisi Tin trying to be like, they're not here, deal with it.
Yeah,
Like,
precisely. But you get those snapshots
Hard-headed.
because these characters,
Yeah.
we don't know them
Which
very
he
well.
is.
If this is the only content you've read, and they're going to die, so you have to care about that. This kind of small, few minute read makes it all more impactful. So yeah, it's
I
just
gotta be
effective.
honest. Even with my knowledge of the EU, I don't care about those two in particular, Kolar and Tin.
Yeah, neither do I.
just don't.
No, Kit Fisto was the only one I felt the real loss for.
Oh,
Don't
yeah,
get me wrong, I
Kit
like
Fisto,
them
but
both.
He's
but,
got
you
a
know,
lot more material than those two, though.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I like them both, but they're not high on the list of the people I'm particularly attached to.
Right. And then next we have Anakin like weighing his options and then deciding that he will kill his dragon, the one that always tells him
Yes.
about the stars dying.
The Dead Star Dragon.
That's a simple thing for that one.
hmm
Well, it's kind of just he's
so-
kind of just resolving. It's finally being like,
Right.
Make,
It was an emotional scene for going
Yeah.
from I'm stuck here to no,
to
I'm
I'm
going
gonna
to
make a decision.
Well,
yeah.
it's
Right.
it's
Yeah,
kinda
basically
like
agrees with
like
Palpatine
the
at this point.
stand-in for that scene where he and like Padme are like staring at each other
Right.
and like thinking about each other in the film.
You
like, with
said that with a bit of a tone. That's actually one of the better scenes in
this-
the
okay.
prequel.
Yeah.
Hold up, you're actually inferring a meaning I didn't intend. I agree. I think that is one of the better scenes.
Oh,
in that
okay. I'm
film.
sorry.
I was stumbling over my words trying to figure out
My
how to.
fault.
I don't
I
hate
thought-
that scene. Okay.
Your
Yeah,
tone was like,
no.
oh my god, does he hate that? That's like one of the good ones.
No, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Gotcha,
hate
gotcha.
every scene but that one concerning the two of them like in that film.
Yeah. It's funny. The one scene that they're
No,
not
I'm
actually
serious. Like,
together
every scene
is actually
except
the
for that
best
one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually
And
pretty
they're not talking.
right.
That's why it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
No chance to ruin it with the writing.
They
I hate sound.
basically we got John Williams making that scene good because music.
Yeah. And it's a good moment of acting between the two as well. I get the feeling that Lucas was a bit more hands off for that small moment, that iota of a film.
I'll give him credit. I think like he realized that they didn't need to talk like in that one. Like it seemed like a stylistic choice. That he
No,
made,
I
you
know, but I mean, as in, like, he didn't interfere with how they should then portray that, is what I'm saying. They got a chance to let off their own
Like
personal...
you're gonna walk over here onto this side and then
And look
have one
solemnly
tear
out
coming
the window.
down. Like he just like just feel the emotion, like play the same.
So he got a chance to show off their acting chops.
But then this gets to the part where Palpatine does withdraw his lightsaber in the most cool way possible.
Yeah.
Just the revelry in it, that I've been waiting so long, and then the blade burning its way out. He could just,
Yeah.
I love it.
Because-
and that's it. Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Connor,
the
go
thing,
ahead.
the one little detail I do love is the way Palpatine conceals his lightsaber, because, well, it's just so in keeping with his character. He keeps it hidden inside a massive statue that's made of lightsaber-resistant alloy, which is why why his lightsaber actually needs like a minute or two to burn its way out of this thing. But the thing is, it's like he created a situation where having a great big hunk of lightsaber-resistant alloy in his office wouldn't raise any eyebrows, and no one would look too closely at it because it's like, oh, Palpatine likes antique artwork. This is an antique piece of artwork that just happens to be made of, a couple tons of neuranium. Okay, cool. No one realizing that, oh, wait, this
Sistros.
Yeah, no one realizing that, oh, wait, this statue, this piece of art is actually being used to conceal a weapon.
Yeah. Literally, he has a mural of a Jedi versus Sith battle that the Jedi don't recognize in his office.
Right.
Yeah, we've mentioned that. Yeah.
Right.
At least this piece has
this one at least makes
sense.
Naboo.
Yeah.
It's connected to
it's a statue of Sistros. Yeah. Which again, it makes a little bit more sense than the film where he just has it in his sleeve and you never, you wonder.
Yeah.
No one ever.
Yeah. You also see the setup of him setting up the audio recording, which
right.
Yeah, I actually like a lot. Which goes on later. We don't have that quite yet.
Love this plot
we have the Shock T scene right after, but I do like the setup of that, which we'll get into very shortly. Shock T. Do you want to take this one, Alan? Because
one of my all-time favorite characters, and this is kind of the reason. She's compassionate first. She sees that Anakin's struggling and reaches a hand out to help. Even when he was extremely disrespectful and didn't call her master, which she still noted. It's like, what's going on right now? What you look like you need to be in a med bay. She doesn't say that, but she's thinking it. I like that she didn't just go, yes, Anakin, here you go, and she was at least concerned about him. It wasn't just all Jedi duty with her.
And I like that there's a dichotomy between her response and even in her own limited third-person perspective prose, she likens it to like, well, I'm going to say some nice words to him that probably Mace Windu has been saying to him over the past few
that
weeks,
was the other thing.
I mean?
It's like I'll extend that open hand probably more than Mace did.
Right.
I can't. As much as I love Mace, he's not the friendliest face. So she's being that.
I think again the irony though, because I think he does say something like, "If what you told me is true, you'll have earned my trust," or something like that. Yeah. So like he has been as supportive as I think Mace can be.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
But it was
that's still
bit,
brusque.
Too little, too late. I think at that point, because he can give that there, but
everyone is too little, too late because Padme is about to die. Like so, I have to go stop. Like he's irrational. Like he's not on the same planet anymore.
And I like how restrained he is in his lack of restraint, because he very much gives off the impression that he would just cut her down if she really got in his way. But you don't feel that she's threatened. So it's not the case of she's completely blind to his anger or whatever. He's not actively turning that on yet. But you still get that feeling of, okay, he's on that edge. Don't push him.
At the moment, it's all about Padme, not the Sith. He hasn't made that choice yet.
Yeah,
right.
She's not threatening Padme. She's just slowing him down. So get out of the way, please.
Yeah.
And that's all.
And then bring it up. He's like, I'm the chosen one. I should be there, right? Why is no one letting me play out my destiny? You guys kept telling me about for all these years. I like that he brought that up too, because it's like a legit. You guys have been building me up for years, and you're telling me the one time that I'm gonna be needed because you're about to attack a Sith Lord, I'm supposed to stay here and just meditate. Like, no, that's not gonna fly.
Yep.
And that's ultimately why she relents.
Well,
it's like,
but that's not his reason for saying it, though.
No. But it's an excuse he gives, though. It's sort of half a fault that he has as well.
But it's more like him, the prophecy effect of equivalent of pulling rank. It's like he's pulling prophecy.
Yeah,
it's like
that's exactly
that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
it's because I want to be on site to make sure nothing happens to my ticket to freeing Padme. Because I don't trust what Mace is doing right now. Even though Mace is serious, he's not going there to assassinate him, but Palpatine's too dangerous. As they find out.
Yeah, so, that's another point we should have mentioned actually. Going there. Well, what are you going to do? Only as much as I have to, which I love. The fact that he means that.
And the pros saying that it's as much truth as he can tell in that moment. So.
Well, the reason I appreciate that is because fans will construe something to fit whatever they want the story to be. So if they want to see evil Jedi corrupt Mace Windu, they can just say that. But if this was on film, you would have something to dispute that. Where no, he had intentions. And that's where I think that they dropped the ball. There
are a surprising amount of Sidious apologists. Or dark side apologists even.
It's unfortunate, but not surprising to me.
Yeah.
They've been such a mainstay forever, so it doesn't surprise me. But yeah,
What the audio?
well, I mean,
audio pops up.
he kind of does a little bit of that in this audio. Speaking of that, where
Right.
he's like, where he's all, oh, yes, well, maybe I am a Sith Lord, but we have laws against religious persecution. You should die. And
It's like, no, bro, you orchestrated a war. So many war crimes, you probably get you on. You know?
Number two, about 1,000 years ago, after that little thing called Rusan, they outlawed the Sith in the Republic. So you are illegal, actually. It's not the same as, oh, I'm just I'm just practicing my religion. No.
Now, the funny thing is that I would,
if they
I
had
imagine,
brought Kenobi, he probably would have brought that up. Negotiator.
well, I
would've-
think
that would've been
there's
hilarious.
actually a pretty high chance that Palpatine might have quietly repealed that law, or
I
the
would think
Sith
the
might have,
Jedi would know.
It would be
Or
something
that
they'd
would
be
have
paying
been a
attention to.
pretty big red flag or lightsaber.
or maybe that the Sith had pushed some political maneuvering centuries ago to quietly repeal that law because they didn't want it being an issue. And the whole
Well-
thing is that repealing the law 500
how?
years.
Mm.
Well,
The thing is, here's the thing is, Count Dooku, who was just waging a war, is a public Sith Lord, right? So there's a big issue, no matter how we try to sidestep the issue. Palpatine's talking out his ass. I think that we can all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how clearly dumbfounded Mace is. He's like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And he's not even refuting it. So his side of the recording he's not even debating. He's being, I'm so sick of your shit right now. We're dealing with this.
You're
The thing is,
arrested.
You're not
thing
aware
that's
that
great
he's
about
playing
that-
to an audience by accident.
It's fairly clear, in a novel, you can tell what's going on. But if you were watching that on screen, your mind would be with Mace for a minute, what?
Yeah.
Because you'd be trying to put together the pieces, and they wouldn't really come together until a later scene with his speech. So I like that. This really should have been in the film.
Yeah.
Really should. It not because of the Jedi. I've talked all this book about how this novel gives the Jedi credit. This would give credit to the Senate for voting in favor
precisely.
of Death, who's up there pontificating, the Jedi betrayed us all. And it's
We'll get
why
to
would
that.
anyone
We
believe
will
this?
get to that lunacy because my God, the book goes amps that up. But yeah, just the fact that it lends credence to the fact that they'll accept that the Jedi were traitors as well. The fact that they'll buy that this happened rather than just the word of this one random guy. Well, I mean, it's not one random guy, of course, it's Palpatine. But just
He literally
his
looks
word
like
against
Death.
the
That's
Jedi.
number one.
Yeah. Because no matter how
But,
much their moral authority has been eroded by the war and the political capital they've expended as a result, as mentioned earlier in the book, they're still the Jedi. These guys are tied to thousands of years of culture and history. They're not just going to be waved away by one person's speech, unless you've got a very good reason, which I like that this justifies that. This is that reason.
Mm-hmm.
At least for the idiots.
It'd be cool too if it would we might not necessarily get that the recording in this section of the movie, but had that played when Bell is coming.
Yeah, that's
into
what Matt means. I think
the Cinepod. Yeah, then you have the recording playing. You're like, oh my God, this is what they're hearing. This is what they think it was, and we just saw the scene. And yeah, that'd been pretty cool.
But in the film, it would have been.
Yeah, but I mean, what would have
been
worked
so easy to put in.
What would have worked really just as well though on screen is him randomly shouting for his life like he does in the book, and as a viewer you just go what, but then it would turn around and you go, oh, that's genius actually, that's great.
I would, if nothing else, I would have loved to
that'd be
see
really cool.
the what expressions from Samuel Jackson as he plays that. It's like, what are you doing? As the guy's just flailing at him with his blade. It was like, help me, guards, please.
I also like the how he just doesn't give a shit. He's just so casual about this, and perfectly at his ease. To me, this is much more intimidating than the snarl over the desk,
Yeah.
which I just thought, oh, I was I saw this film when I was 12 or 13, whatever old I was when it came out, and I was already face palming that, and I thought that's so stupid. And the primary reason is because in the trailer, after he says he's the Jedi, he just appears over the desk. You go, ooh, that's disturbing and weird and freaky and cool. And this overwrought, stupid, spiral thing. I thought, that they ruined it. Just ruined it.
Let's try spinning. That's a good trick.
Yeah, if a character like that on their introductory salvo has to put effort in, you're just stripping the power away from them. I'm not one of those people who likes zero effort from everything. You need to see some level of engagement. But for the opening salvo, maybe a little bit less, more subtlety, more. He also
guile. Didn't do anything with it. He just jumped over the desk to do
Precisely,
that. It wasn't a maneuver that he used to impale somebody.
He landed, then pulled back for a really ridiculous thrust. And it's like, why didn't you just do that with the original spin?
You have a lightsaber. You don't need to do that. But that's okay. All lightsabers kind of fight like that, like they're real swords. But it's okay.
But we're kind of bouncing around here. So I like
might
how
actually
this is
start.
a lot of this is told from Anakin's perspective, where like
Yes.
he's seeing like lights color fade out. Oh, there's a death.
And you know what?
Yeah,
And that,
going
and
back
that
to
might
that, you know,
have been
filling
cool
in the
too.
blanks
If you
of the
didn't
film
want
as
to
well.
Yes, I was going to say this earlier. This was a mental note. Go ahead, Antoine. I agree.
Well, if you don't want to, like, if George Lucas, the reason why he didn't want to do that elaborate fight that Nick Gillard spent fucking months doing, he's like, no, we're just gonna have them do it. Then just have Anakin see a bunch of lights, and then there goes light down, and then we as the viewer can think about what that fight was instead of seeing the lameness.
We wouldn't have to endure that, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, just allude to it. It's same with horror films. The most effective horror films are the ones where they pull away before the person gets their head chopped off or gets squished or something like that, and then you like allude, like, oh my god, like even we were talking about with Legend of Korra, I think a few weeks back, about a guy thinking that they saw Police head explode during that episode where Zahir, Suyin put the metal casing on her, and then he's like, no, I remember her head exploding. He's like, no, your imagination did, because it's much more powerful than what you can see on screen. So yeah, you could do that, and then awkwardness not having to ensue.
And even with it not being in the film, you know, the fact that it's, sorry, I keep doing that. Stover said took the time to make it show it that way. It got the reaction from Anakin to a different point of view that we haven't seen before. It meant that we didn't have to go over the material we'd already seen in the film. And like I said, it's a better portrayal of the drama and the action, because we can put our own thoughts to the page then.
And just visually, it would be a change of pace, because it's like, okay, now you have a sleep-deprived, delirious, distraught person, like, with their vision is blurry, and they're like, what am I looking at right now? Like, you can dance around horrible choreography in that way by just obscuring it. Like, it's just, it could be so creative and serve the plot, and also, again, make it so we don't have to watch that scene in its existing state. Yeah.
Worth mentioning as well that sleep deprivation is pretty much the only reason I buy any of this with Anakin, because it really helps sell the emotional strain and just the complete insanity that he's going through. Because it's still pushing the boundaries of believability at points, because he has to work within the limits of the film, but at the same time you understand that he's not working at full capacity right now. When all the subtle little hints he misses with Palpatine and all of the kind of conclusion jumping he does, particularly in this following scene. It at least is some way made sense of.
Yeah, even Stover can fix these problems, like the post-fight stuff and everything, because it's just too ridiculous. It's still even in the books, I feel like him changing over happens too quickly. And then like when we follow his scenes where he's like attacking the Jedi Temple, I'm still not on board. Not so much because I disagree with what he's doing, but just I can't even empathize with. I was like, how did you get here that quickly? Where you're against the Jedi, like to the point where you want to just kill them? Like what?
Even if it's small things like tears streaming down his face and emotional trauma as he's doing it, he can't just he's not doing it casually. That alone would add to it. It still wouldn't make any sense, but it makes sense.
He does do that. But it's when he's killing the separatists where it's misplaced.
Yeah.
Like he should be doing it while he's killing the Jedi.
He was like kind of crying. He is yelling with the separatists. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's
that
like,
would help so much more too. Yeah.
Because the thing is that the separatists are the people that Anakin would have been glad to kill. It's like these aren't people he's going to regret.
Emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is the moment where he should be coming out of there with like a manic grin. Like, yeah, these guys I've wanted to kill for 3 fucking years because fuck them and I get to kill them. Oh, yeah.
And obviously definitely not in Anakin Skywalker state, but when he has just, tipped over the scales over to the dark side, this is one of those small guilty pleasures he would have indulged in. This is where he would have seen the kind of revelry, and not something he would have done ever in the past. He's never wanted to just execute these people. But that quiet thing in the back of the mind, I can finally run wild with this. This is something I don't have to feel particularly guilty about, because these guys deserve it.
Especially after their bloodlust in the Jedi Temple that he would be like building, once you get to the separatists, and it's already there.
Yeah, precisely.
The other problem is like the same one, like we talk about like him joining too quick. It's the same one that's in the film. And at this time I can't expect Stover to fix it anyway. But like it seems like Anakin was like, I promise I'll join my destiny to the Order of the Sith Lords because you have like this knowledge to like save my wife. And like immediately, oh right, that power. Well, my master knew it, but I don't. Together.
I know, it's like
that was a very Ian McKellen delivery there, Matt.
I'm sure if we get the holocrons in the Jedi Temple, we could definitely discover it. Trust me, I'm sure. What?
Yeah, so it's like there's still that issue. So that really, this part just needs a whole George Lucas level like chain rewrite. Like nothing could be done about that.
Yeah,
that's just bad.
Yeah.
Definitely not a criticism
Well,
of Stover. He does everything he can with it, pretty much. But it's just again those limitations. It's only so far he can push them. But we should probably talk about the actual fight as well, because people are going to want us to hear our opinions on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was like, I mean, we can't skip it, but I was like, we should probably at least.
People will be
it.
commenting it in the thousands. Otherwise,
Let's give ourselves a like 3-minute time limit. Let's not exceed that.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say, Connor? I didn't mean to jump over you there.
I was just saying how the whole reason for Anakin falling just goes back to how Anakin's entire motivation throughout all of these movies was all wrong. They gave him a super selfish motivation for falling, whereas what they should have done was created a delusion of being selfless, even though what he was actually doing was being a fascist enforcer.
Yeah, give us the illusion that at least thinks he's in the right, rather than just oh, I don't care, I love Padme. That's I completely agree with that one.
You should consciously choose the dark, not be fooled into just being stuck on this path. I mean, you can make it that in the long run, but it's so immediate that it's like laughable.
Yeah, it flips that switch, and I guess I'm doomed now, so I'll just do whatever because I'm already doomed.
I guess I'm doomed.
I actually kind of don't like the description he uses when he's like, of him like standing on the precipice and he's like holding Padme's life and all the Jedi in his hands, and he just immediately says no contest.
Yeah, he's like
cut to him. It's like does not resonate. I'm sorry, I do not like that. I did not.
Yep, because even Anakin, with all of his difficulties with the Order,
like,
it's just the Council, not the people in the lower levels. He loves the Order.
Exactly. That's the point I had note for too. Is that his real issues with the Council, not with all the other thousands of Jedi in the galaxy. You know what I mean? Like for him to just younglings.
Yeah,
what?
I know, right?
He literally says it was no contest. It's like, well,
right.
He's that far gone at this point. Again, the sleep deprivation kind of helps explain that to an extent, but it doesn't play narratively for me. I'm with you, Evan. It's like
it's an attempt.
It's one of the few cases where I don't appreciate the writing he used to describe that. It just doesn't resonate.
But
with me.
Also it's what he kind of had to do, because like what else could I do with?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like
I'm not blaming him entirely. I'm just saying I think it's an unfixable situation.
No, right there with you.
But it just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work.
I agree with you, and I actually think that after this point, I'm all throughout the early portions of the book. That to me, okay, this is Anakin. This is like my head Anakin. Like this is who he should have been. But after we get to this point, we cross this threshold where it's like, this is a bit of a different flavor from what's on screen, but I don't like it better. And in some cases, I even like less. Sorry, go. Like no, maybe I'm wrapping up. Yeah, that's right.
I just feel like maybe that if they wanted to go for like a scale symbolism, maybe have it be where it's like one side's tipped, other sides he's like struggling with which one to go, but for him just to immediately go to one, it defeats the purpose of the entire analogy, which that's part. Again, I just don't think it works. Sorry.
For me, it should be tied to like you said with the scales tipping up back and forth. There, that should have been something that was trailing right up until the final decision.
Struggle,
it should have been a long-term thing for the extent of this segment of the book, and just kind of getting more and more strained and imbalanced. But also, it should have been the reason he's struggling with the whole Padme thing, because even at his best, Anakin is always Padme first, at least in principle until the end when he has fallen. Which is actually mentioned later on in the book. We'll get to that later. But the thing that kind of would make sense despite that is the fact that he knows Padme. He knows that her, and as it's been shown earlier in the book, her sense of duty is important to her, extremely so. She's tried to hammer that in, really early in the book. That should have been something that he was factoring into the equation. He should have been thinking, okay, what would Padme want me to do? A duty would lean more in favour of the Order, but then I lose Padme, and it should have been, it should have been that back and forth to give us, a good reason, because he is objectively wrong, like 100% put Padme before the Order. There's no question that on a moral level, but on a human level, you can
doesn't land.
Yeah, he as Anakin in particular it's not personable enough for him. He will always put the as we've said before with Obi-Wan's, talking about loyalty. He will always put the personal at hand, in front of him, thoughts and emotions before the high-minded, philosophy of things. Mm-hmm. So to see him struggle with this back and forth, using Padme's own sense of duty to kind of keep the other tipped against her favour, I think it would have been very effective.
And that would have been a good narrative choice to call back to the Masters chapter where Obi-Wan even talks about how, what separates Anakin from the other Jedi is the fact that he does put his emotions first ahead of duty, unlike him and the rest of the Order.
Yeah, that would have been where to bring in the no contest thing. It would have been a case of, but in the end, no contest. And it's not because, screw the Jedi Order, but because, no, he puts loyalty and stuff first. And they lost that, and Padme has that in spades anyway. You know, it's just, it would have worked better. But again, he only has so much time to work with here, so it's difficult to work around this limitation.
Cool. So do we want to do the Mace Sidious thing right now?
Yes, let's jump into that, because people will want us to cover that.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It was all good. Where do we start then?
So should we? I mean, do you guys want to talk about the logistics of how Kit and Saisi and Aegon are taken out differently?
Yeah, well,
does anyone have anything to say about that?
I mean,
well, like the book,
how
just better.
Yeah,
it is just objectively better. It's still not quite there for me because for the whole believability factor. But I love that he actually put the attention in and tried to make it make sense because he had to do it some way, and this is ultimately the best way he could do it. I think.
Yeah.
We're all of one mind about that, though, right? It was just even if we don't quite agree with the end execution, it's still the best we could have got given the limitations of the film. He could not have done this better with the framework he was given.
Yeah, right. I mean, so my list of disappointments, like Grievous was like kind of like number 1, and number 2 is this. Like when this scene happened, I go, did Mace like round up like just some people from across the street, like in fight, like I mean, it seemed. I wanted to see like a visual representation of what Darth Maul, who in my like little kid mind was like awesome, but he still kind of is. But it's like I wanted to see why that guy called this old man master. So I'm gonna take him 4, and it was like, oh, well, that was easy. It was just like that's a bummer. So yeah, because that of the like Flintstonian like execution of that scene, like it's hard to be as bad as that. So yes, this is a step up. I think we all agree on that. When it comes to actual Mace versus Sidious, is this like a question of like explaining what happened, like to people who may not know?
One thing I like is it's pretty clear in the pros. We know that the back and forth between this version of the film kind of creates confusion about how the fight would have gone, and to be fair, it is up for debate, the ultimate conclusion of it. The description of why it makes sense in this portrayal, I think, is very effective. Considering the subject matter, he explains Varpad very effectively.
Well, he wrote the book on it.
Well, literally, yeah. I like that it makes, it's again got that continuity of the previous work. He's got the understanding of how it would work in this situation. I like the fact that even that he said, this is Varpad's first real field test, against a true threat. True ultimate threat, I should say. So, it puts weight into the situation and feeds, gravitas into all of this. And it's not just a case of, and then they fight at the end, moving on to what actually matters for the conclusion. You get some meat in the fight itself, which you didn't have to do given what we were given, the travesty we were given from the film.
Mm-hmm. And with regard to, like, what we do with, like, the Versus series and, like, when we break down characters, the reason why I hold Mace in such high regard is that while it's true that, like, he does require, like, sort of this circumstantial amp, like for this power to work this way, it's proven effective against the canon most powerful Dark Lord. So yeah, it pretty much works against every other one. Like people like to say that it only worked on this occasion and only ever could.
And that's weird. That's a weird argument to make because it's like, isn't that the case for all these other fights with any other character?
Why
it's
would
like
he not
they did that
at least if
lightsaber
he
strike
had to?
only once in that one fight, so they will never do that strike ever again. It's like doesn't make sense.
I see where the confusion comes with other people. Like they think, well, not everyone's as strong as Sidious, so Mace can't always be as strong. Like, yeah, that's true. But my point is, he can also, precisely. He will always be strong enough because the whole point of it is he will inevitably match whoever he faces. Darksiders, anyway. He will always match any Darksider he faces, and no matter which Sith you put him up against, he will always be able to meet them blow for blow. Because he's one of the, if not the most skilled lightsaber combatant of all time. He's definitely up there as number one, shared with other people, if not the absolute top. And also his force powers, which are considerable by themselves, he's already up there, are always going to be able to amp up to match anyone he faces. That's what's relevant.
But to be fair, though, that is only with the case of his lightsaber combat, because when it did come to a battle of the Force, when it was his blade against Sidious's lightning, he was choking on his own lightsaber, and Sidious is the one who pulled back, to do the whole Anakin spiel.
Yeah, we have to give Sidious credit that he's not helpless there. Like he is playing a role there, but he couldn't. Where I argue is the people that think he could have ended that fight on his terms at any moment. It's like no, not that easily, and not in terms of lightsaber fight. Like give Mace his due. Yeah. That's the only thing I don't there. Okay, so we have Nightfall commencing. We've already kind of like run through the beats of this. I don't want to like go over.
You don't want to discuss the in-depthness of Gatemaster Jurok and his critical.
Is that character like even like a background character, or was he completely made up for this?
I think he completely got made up here.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I didn't recognize him from anything other material.
He's mentioned in this book, and he's mentioned in I think one of the guides later down the line, but that's literally it.
Yeah, I got the impression he was just a name. One of those people who gets that brief token mention and nothing else. But I could be wrong there. Let us know in the comments below if you happen to know anything more about him, guys.
He does have a pretty horrific death, though, I will say.
Yeah, it's one of those.
His chain out his skull, like that's.
Yeah.
It's the instantaneous of those kind of deaths that gets me. It's like, oh, snuffed out.
Also, again, it showcases how Anakin didn't just walk into the Jedi Temple. He used his access to help get the Gate Master to let them in.
Yeah.
So it was kind of more of a sneak attack thing, which again does just kind of, justify a little bit more.
We totally forgot to talk about Anakin's actual turn.
Yeah, we did. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
He was like the moment where he's named Vader.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Right.
Yeah, we kind of did pass over that.
Yeah, he
unless
kneels.
we don't care.
Well, no, we care because the kneeling is ridiculous. Anakin's immediate submission to this new authority. It's kind of made more sense by the fact that we do get some resistance later on.
I've been with the Jedi so long.
Yeah, and more than that, he's actively against Sidious for a number of sections of this book. He's thinking, oh yeah, you think you're in charge. That kind of helps validate this. But at this point in the book, you don't know he's thinking that, or he may not even be thinking it at this stage. It may be a result of his trauma from the Jedi. But from the sacking of the temple, I mean. But if he is actually in this moment thinking, okay, yeah, I'll just submit to Sidious and completely, it's like, you don't like authority. The reason you like Palpatine is because he never treated you this way. He's now going straight into Lord Vader, kneel before me. It's like, I know he's doing the knighting. It's not like a subjugation thing, but this is a mainstay of their relationship from this point forward. And it never made sense for Anakin to like that.
Right.
Or Vader, I
and
should
also,
say. We should start calling him Vader at this point, I suppose.
It's still BS the way the name comes up, because literally in the movie, it looks like he's just like, let me look around the room for something that seems like Vader. And here he at
was
least he tried to
consulting
say...
a mental checklist. Maul, Plagueis, that one's done. I think there's a couple ruins. Vader! Like, there we go. You're Vader. It's like, what?
But at least in the book, he's like, he's questioning the dark side of the Force to look for something. But it's that doesn't work.
Yeah, I like the idea, and I appreciate the sentiment.
They try and justify it later on by saying it's like it's a derivative, like an ancient Sith tongue sort of thing, but that doesn't come up until way later.
Personally, I rather like what the Darth Bane trilogy did by having the Sith Lords choose their own Sith names.
Yeah, I like both. Yeah. It depends on how it's done, really. But I think we can all agree, at least it wasn't some random Imperial officer deciding it.
Yes, we can agree with that.
That is a benefit.
Which is
He's
what?
talking about
Oh,
Solo.
sorry, yeah, Solo. You haven't seen that, have you?
Oh, Matt, you didn't see it. That's right.
I care not about Solo. It's like I paid to see it. I was called out of emergency, and I don't give a shit. I've just never gotten around to see it.
Yeah, which is funny because it's the first 10 minutes that happens as well. So you missed out like by that much.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the reference there.
But yeah, sorry, yeah. So
One
at least
I'll
it's not
see
that.
I guess.
But yeah, he does kind of just literally pluck it out of the air, Antoine. It's amusing to think about. It's like, yes, Vader. Why not? It doesn't really matter anyway, right?
Where my head went was the way he said, I thought, is that what they did to him in like the canon? Are they like recanonizing like what happens on the screen now? Like, that's weird.
God, no, definitely not.
No, thank God.
Wouldn't put it past him, though. But yeah, he does the whole subjugation thing,
to
bowing, knighting. He's been anointed as Darth Vader regardless.
I guess.
And then goes off to the temple to immediately slaughter younglings, because that's what you do when you join the dark side, right?
Okay, so we open up with Order 66, yes, which is, we start with Utapau, same way it happens in the movie, with the whole preamble with Cody, and then him being like, oh, could they have done it before I gave him the goddamn lightsaber, and then it keeps going.
I would have loved for that to have been in the film. That should have been in the film.
All you see is just him ordering,
Yeah, not only does it make sense for a clone's personality to be like sort of wry like that, but also, yeah, like I'm in his shoes there. It's like, could you have like made this call like literally like 30 seconds ago, please?
Right. And I like kind of the explanation for why why the clones are so effective against the Jedi, because they themselves are sort of like droids, where you can't really sense what's going to happen. Although that does really make sense because they intercept blaster bolts from
it's
droids all the time. So
it doesn't work, but I appreciate the effort. That's my way.
Right.
That's my way of thinking for it, because it's one of those things that never makes any sense, that all of their collective danger senses just turned off, and well, I guess we just because we trust them, it's just overrided. That's not how the Force works. But yeah, I hear it. He tries to explain it as much
to
as
the
he
point where
possibly
even
can.
Boga seems to have Force sensitivity
precisely.
out of nowhere. Like what?
Yeah, her spider sense is going off. So
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we don't really get this book doesn't really have that same sort of montage that the film had when you actually see the Jedi get cut down. Here it's just kind of
just references
they just
relevant
name
planets.
the planets.
So,
Yeah,
it's there in a very truncated version. Yeah,
right.
I can still hear that music playing though. Oh, that John Williams score.
That's the best thing about episode 3.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, arguably the films, but like in any case,
Certainly the prequels.
so Order 66 happens.
We have Bell coming to the temple when he sees it on fire, and he's like,
Yeah,
"We're the
Bale is
fire ships
awesome.
or whatever."
Can I just say that? I love how awesome he is in this moment. Even he was good in the film, of course, but here he's like actively, okay, we need to get off planet. This is about to go. He's
Right.
he's reading the writing on the wall, and it bigs him up as the one of the architects of the rebellion so much. Yeah, I love it.
And I love when what was George Lucas's son's character's name? The one
Zet Jukas?
Jocasta. It was
No,
Zet Jocasta.
Zet Jukas. Zet Jukas.
I think it's Zet Jukasa.
But I like in the description in the book that they say like the lightsaber is almost as tall as him, showing that like this isn't this kid's personal lightsaber, which also was alluded to earlier, because I think either Mace or whoever when
Mace
they said
mentioned
he said armed the
that they
Padawan.
armed the older Padawans with like spare lightsabers.
Which
and
I
to be
love.
like, oh my god, you're right.
I love that idea. Just the idea that they've literally gone to that level of detail and thought, okay, yeah, let's do this. This is an important part.
All right, and the particular thing I like is like, and the 10-year-old was hit again, and then just shot to rags among the bodies of the troopers he'd killed. It was like, whoa, that's freaking gruesome. And then for Bell to be like witnessing it, I was like, wait, what's going on here? Like,
yeah, he's going to be waking up for a few nights to come, I think, sweating over that one.
Right.
Poor Bale. His reaction though as well when he's like, okay, I'm out. Nope.
It's
nope,
also
nope.
very necessary because like you need for him to have beyond like just his like beyond his just the way he is, like he would obviously be leaning toward that side, but to that side of things in this conflict, but to be that committed to it for that many years afterward, it has to have like be ingrained in something he experienced like this.
Right.
Needs some real emotional resonance to have
and
any
also
weight.
a line that was missing is that they needed the no witnesses kill him because they didn't really have that. He just kind of ran off, which I always found awkward in the movie. He just like comes.
Yeah, they do
up.
shout
That
kill
actually
him,
leads
right?
into something I
But
actually
not-
kind of wanted to
They
mention.
try to kill him, right?
Yeah,
that's
they
true.
say no. No, they don't say
explain
no
it.
witnesses. I think they just say shoot him or kill him or get him or something. They don't
they
say no
don't
witnesses though.
explain
And you're right, Antoine. It's in a
They-
pivotal line
they do
because
say
otherwise
get him,
otherwise they just open fire for no reason.
Right, because I always was confused. Like they're just shooting at him, but
Yeah,
no
he's
witnesses. thing. It was
senator.
Like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to mention this. In the comic book adaptation of this, for some reason, the clones say, don't shoot him, he's not a Jedi. And that never made any sense to me.
Yeah,
Something
that's
got
weird.
lost in translation there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
The
But yeah, I mean,
comic
that's,
book
Back to Kenobi, because after Bail, he obviously isn't killed there. So Kenobi is attacked by his troops, and it's basically like the same scene that's on screen. I don't have anything to say about that person.
Yeah, aside from
Or
thinking
Boga.
about dirty with the
what I
Boga
do like though is
connection.
that
Breaks my heart.
the blast is described much better. That is almost as bright as the Utapau's sun, which I felt like, oh, okay, now they're. Because in the movie, it's just like they kind of shot some rocks out from under him, and then he fell over. Versus being like the actor.
That should be enough.
They
That'll do
obliterate
it.
Boga. You know what I mean? Like to the point where
She
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
jumped and like
Charged,
curled
like, yeah.
around him, and
that's not really indicated in the movie in the same way. So like the likening this blast to, like the sun alludes to that power that they were going to just rip him to shreds if he was to be shot.
That's
And-
a good
and-
point. I just kind of passed over it because of the ratings thing. I think that they wouldn't be able to show things at that.
That's very
gruesome,
true.
but
That's
yeah.
very true.
If nothing else, it would have made a good transitional shot to have that light kind of fade away into the montage of the planets. But worth note as well
So like
is
the son of Mikito, and then you
yeah,
come down.
precisely. Yeah, like the jet engines of the Starfighter from Plo or something. To have it moves into that transition. But more important.
You filmmaker, Callan.
But more important than that for me is the fact that again talking about that Boga connection, how he's talking about loss of a friend, or not so much
Well,
loss,
no,
but loss of.
that comes later.
Let's just continue with it. Though.
Oh,
Keep
my
going,
bad. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm useless with this at the moment. But regardless, it makes sense because this is kind of part where he brings in the Obi-Wan, the mentality that he's got. Because from this point forward, we get the repeat of Obi-Wan's dealing with his emotions and reaffirming his state as a true Jedi, the Jedi.
Yeah.
I like the contrast that's being established, if not here, it's very shortly, against the parallels of him and Anakin.
And even the description of how he brought himself back to consciousness and the physical exertion that takes and using
Expelling the
Jedi
water.
training,
Yeah.
I was like, that's a really awesome. Like, I never thought about that, but yeah, Jedi should be able to do that. You know what I mean? I love when seeing Jedi powers being used outside of just throwing things around, and telepathy or whatever.
It's also just how methodical Obi-Wan's approach is to this. It's like he wakes up, realizes, oh, I'm underwater, water's icy cold, my lungs are half full. What to do? Okay, quietly expel water from lungs. Grab rebreather, put it in. We're good.
And then he just
Feel
kinda lets- he
pride
just
that I
floats
didn't
away.
feel pride that I didn't drop the lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's like, yes,
Yeah, which
win.
is like, I wanted to mention that because like earlier when he said I have to drop the lightsaber to deal with Grievous, like you have telekinesis, like why just hold
Right.
it mentally?
They all
Like
seem
you
to
do
push
not
it,
have
yeah.
to drop it. But they never do that. They always drop the lightsaber.
But I just find it funny because it made me literally laugh out loud when I read that. It's like, yes, but he was quietly happy that he managed to hold on to his lightsaber. So take that, Anakin. Immediately following the whole situation with him and Cody, you won't tell Anakin about this, right? It's like, well, at least I managed to hold on to that. That would have been embarrassing twice in one day.
Yeah.
The brief scene between
Nonchalant.
Padme and go ahead. Non-slide.
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was just talking about like his nonchalant reaction, when he first wakes up.
Yeah,
he
very
doesn't
Obi-Wan.
freak out.
It's
Yeah.
very Obi-Wan. Well, very Jedi, but particularly Obi-Wan
Right.
because of his whole go with the flow thing. Even though he's being methodical here,
Yeah.
he literally goes with the flow, like you said.
He's literally like he was fairly certain that this counted as an emergency.
Yes, yeah, he's
Like,
just so blasé about it, and I love it. It's
Yeah.
true control of your
Right.
emotions at this point. Even though he's obviously going to start slipping from this point forward, it's nice that they establish this starting point and then gradually deteriorate it until the very end when he refines himself. But yeah, sorry for talking that out of
Yeah.
sequence. I was thinking that was immediately
No,
following.
that's
but-
fine. That's fine. We
I
have
think
the
it's fine to be
Anakin
out
Padme
of
scene.
sequence
Yeah.
because like
Yeah,
that's
fine.
starting
So we get
the book.
yeah.
The book starts jumping from scene to scene and back again. I think it's fine if we just kind
Yeah,
of truncate
middle
our
of the-
discussions for
yeah.
the
It's
purposes
completely
of being
fine.
able to be followed.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, but Anakin tries to rationalize genocide a second time for Padme.
Yeah,
and
this
another
is
scene.
madness.
God.
Like,
This time-
is
And this time she's
insane.
actually reacting.
But at the
Right.
same time, not because she's still like, let's just go away, Anakin. Let's get away from all this. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
What is wrong with you, woman?
But also, I like the from Anakin. Like, this is the part where we have to kind of take the leap of faith, or not leap of faith. What's the word I'm looking for? A leap in logic for the Anakin's descent.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, because the lines that he's giving, like saying, like I'm doing this because you're safe because of me. I made you safe. Like that's fine, like in a vacuum, and just thinking, okay, they established that correctly prior to that. So like this scene kind of works like that, though still. Because we had that quick turnaround, it's like, but you didn't really earn this. But with it on its own, I'm like, okay, I like that. The context of the scene was him putting it on himself that he's been doing all this for her, and he wants her to know that, intimately.
That should be. I haven't watched the film again, like as I've mentioned in some time. But that idea that he thinks she's being almost ungrateful or just
Right.
not appreciating it. Like, I don't know how strongly that's played in the actual movie. I think he's just like in La La Land and just sort of crazy. But like that idea, I do buy that. Like, I'm not saying he's right, but I can buy that he perceives the situation that way because he's off the deep end.
Right.
Falling to the dark side will do that to you. It'll cloud your perspective a little bit.
Yeah, to say
And
nothing
then
of
also
the
it gets
continued
really
whole
weird
lack of
and-
sleep deprivation. That's not a problem that's getting any better at this point.
Right.
It's only
And then the
worse and worse.
possessiveness continues because there's a point where she cries, and then again, I know Connor would like this because of the whole mechanical hand touching the tears or whatever, because you like alluding to this mechanical hand. But he says that the tears are his, and it's like, what? That's so abusive. That is
Yeah,
like
he's weird.
the epitome of an abusive husband. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah,
going
it
like,
gets
oh, you're
dark.
crying, but at least those are my tears. Like, who the fuck are you right
I
now?
know.
Like,
I
that's
mean,
so off the deep end.
The sinister undertones have always been there, as we've said, on both parties, even if mostly Anakin. But yeah, this is where it gets really dark, and like, okay, Padme,
then her
Padme, wake
response?
up, Padme, wake
What's
up.
her response? Always, Anakin, forever. Come back to me, because you're my life.
Even when she's doubting herself
Sometimes-
as well, it always
Right.
hammers back in with that after the fact. Like even Stover can't get around this problem because we know how it ultimately
Right.
has to end. But the whole going back to the whole reward thing and earning her, the self-validation thing. I like how it focuses on that for the extent of time it does, because it is the fact that he's fallen to the dark now. He's more and more Sith with every moment. He's thinking about self, and that needs to be established because of the ultimate conclusion to the whole Padme and Anakin situation. His thought process during and after and the end of the book. For that to mean anything, we have to see that he's already slipped down that path. He's excluding her here, even at like 10 minutes after turning to the dark side.
This craziness for me is like that's when she should have been like, okay, I'm done with you. Like, not that she has to tell him that in that moment, but what he comes to understand is, okay, she's grown apart from me. Obi-Wan's turning her against me, and the revelation is, no, Obi-Wan has nothing to do with it. I turned against you because you're crazy.
Knife.
Like that.
This is where the knife plan starts to
That
solidify.
reality. That's something that
Instead of
definitely
you're
should have
breaking
been
my
more
heart, or because the way it's played up is like, oh no, I didn't know he was with me. No, it should have been more of an active, like, no, I am against you. You are crazy.
Yeah.
You need to stop this shit.
Yeah, actually give her
Yeah.
some agency.
Yeah.
This scene should have
That's
been when that knife plan starts solidifying, or at least she starts musing about, oh god, how do I stop this? This is
If
when
not
something's
necessarily
gone
the
wrong.
physical knife,
Yeah, the action
thought.
against her against him is what I mean.
Yeah.
And then that leads to the combination with, oh god, I have to kill him. Probably post Obi-Wan, because then she finds out you killed younglings, and even then she's not. It doesn't push her past the point. So what will it take, Padme?
I know.
What does he have to do?
younglings. This is called
Well, he doesn't smack me around, so it's fine.
right.
God. And he kind of does sometimes. So even
Or
that,
at least not all the time.
Yeah.
And when he does, it's not that bad. It's okay.
I don't mean to
Yeah,
make light of that kind of situation, but yeah, the way it's
Yeah.
portrayed in the Star Wars,
You can make
situation is
light of
crazy.
it when you're like describing, like when you're critiquing the writing.
Yeah, I know.
because that's like
Right.
the
It's just
scenario they're throwing
ludicrous.
at you. Like, yeah.
It's just ludicrous.
But yeah,
And,
the events kind of happen. They find, or they allude to finding Yoda with his escape pod, because we didn't get that deleted scene that we do for Revenge of the Sith. I
Again,
think
we don't see
Greed-
it happen. It's the end point of it, because anyone who reads this has seen the film. They know what the
Right.
whole situation is.
And then also the scene with Kenobi taking Grievous' ship and finding everybody finding each other. Well, not everybody. Yoda and Obi-Wan finding each other thanks to Bell.
And then we have,
he's like a
we have
surprisingly
Kenobi
important
just trying to
character
hold.
for somebody who's like not on screen like almost ever.
Bell? Yeah.
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 I always forget how much of a presence he has in the films, let alone the books.
Right.
They
And
do
then in
put the
Rogue
effort
One
in for
too,
him.
like him coming back is like, oh whoa. Although it was kind of weird with the
Yeah,
musical
it was
beat they
weird.
had with
We
it.
We
But
mentioned
at the
that in
same
our
time,
review.
it's
He
like-
just walks in
yeah.
a big musical beat and says nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
I did not like that. But at least they tried.
Yeah, I guess they tried. But what I liked about this scene on Tantive 4 was that
Kenobi trying to
you
keep
see,
himself together.
yeah, because you
Yeah.
don't really get it. Like everyone in this movie is always so stoic. I mean, granted, Ewan does do some good stuff towards the end of the movie. That's probably the best acting and
You were
prequels.
my
and-
brother,
well,
Anakin.
right. But you don't really get that in this scene. They just kind of talk about it again, blasé, like, oh, this has happened. This is what we have to do. We have to go back to the planet. But for Obi-Wan, he like appropriately, he is freaking the fuck out. Like
He's
his
human.
entire family that he's known. Yeah, he's human. I mean, granted, yeah, he does have the moment where Yoda has to tell him, and it's fine that Yoda, I think, can be this way because the dude's like 900 years old and he's like apathetic to almost everything.
Well,
So for him to
has hit
bring
the
him
fan.
back,
He
yeah.
has to keep it together
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
He has to keep it together. Otherwise, we're completely lost. So yeah, there's
But
that.
I love seeing Obi-Wan's humanity, especially like thinking about just the children. Not so much that they died, but like they were responsible because you're like, oh, we convinced those families
Took them
to
from their homes,
say, hey,
yeah.
we'll make a better home for them. We'll make sure to raise them right, and just to be like, oh, sorry, they have all just been brutally murdered by clones. Like, and I feel all that for him. I'm happy to see this kind of thing. And I wish it was in the movie because Ewan could have played it great. I think if he got
Oh,
the
yeah.
opportunity to get that direction. So.
Absolutely.
And I like how they
sorry,
play
Vanessa.
up how
You go first, Evan. Sorry, my bad.
just another element that I like they use when they play up his fragility in this moment. It's like when he mentions Anakin just by habit, he immediately like it describes it as like it stabs him. He's like like loses his breath, and I love just how that's described because it just that's very much in line with real world like anxiety when you think, well, he doesn't know, but he's under the impression right now that he's lost
And he's dead.
a loved
Yeah.
a loved one so
Yeah.
close to him. So for him
Yeah.
to get sorry, go ahead, Connor.
No, I get that. Like the other thing that I find so interesting is that what Obi-Wan Kenobi is experiencing in this scene, dealing with the destruction of the Jedi Order, is he's dealing with the exact same thing that pretty much every other Jedi survivor is also dealing with. Basically, the end of everything they've ever known, and it's just really interesting how, like, just alluding to the EU, the different ways that so many Jedi respond to this. How some of them just double down on Jedi philosophy, keep doing what needs to be done, whereas others are like, well, I have nothing to live for except vengeance, embrace the dark side, kill, kill, kill. And then you got some Jedi like Jarek who are like, well, the Sith proved their point. They truly are supreme. If you can't beat them, join them. Hey, Darth Sidious, can I sign up?
Yeah,
And
and you
even
had
more
a,
that
and you
just
had a
become
few who
drifters.
just gave up
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and it's
Don't
kind
forget
of,
them.
they just kind of lost the way and became drifters.
Yeah.
But it's what I like about that though is that the struggle isn't so much that that they've lost everything. It's the fact that for many of them, especially, is that the fact that they've lost everything just means that their duty is suddenly like 100 times more difficult. Because they can't stop being Jedi, or they can, but the true Jedi can't stop being Jedi. That's why they're Jedi. You know, Yoda says, you know, snap out of this, Obi-Wan. We're still Jedi. We still have a job to do. And Obi-Wan would have found that himself. He would have come to that conclusion on his own, but it would have taken time because, again, he's Obi-Wan. He feels these strong emotions and just he has to process them in a more human way than most people who have reached that level of mastery. It's one of his strengths. But yeah, they have so much more responsibility now. They have to continue. They have to fight the darkness. Even if they don't do it the typical Jedi way, they have to do something. So it's just that sense of pressure that's get pushed on top of every individual surviving Jedi, on top of the loss they're already facing. It's nice to see the cracks form as a result of that. But you mentioned the children.
I also like.
Sorry, Matt, you go.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. It's unrelated to that, so you better go.
You mentioned the children, Anakin, Antoine. Sorry, you mentioned the children. About
I hear you.
the kind of the words that Obi-Wan says about how, you know, we took them in, we were supposed to look after them. I see that. While I definitely agree that he's thinking that, and you know, he's feeling that kind of guilt towards it. I like the idea that he's not actually. He hasn't consciously thought, "Oh, we steal children from people" or anything like that. It's the negative aspect of despair and all of the negative emotion feeding into him. It's driving him away from the reality of the situation, which is kind of what Yoda's trying to bring him back to. Is like that we didn't do anything wrong here. This isn't our. While they're obviously responsible to an extent, it's not our fault that this has actively happened. And I like that that's the kind of frame where he pulls him away from it. It's an understandable path for Kenobi to step down, but he doesn't truly believe it. It's just that first step of despair towards it.
It's only wrong if you take it too far. It's right. It's correct to say that they failed in like their pledge to keep them safe, because they're dead. You know, but I mean, it's the same. He's in the position as if you were a parent and you had a child and the child died while in school, or something. Like you would still feel a failure even if you had nothing to do with it.
Precisely,
that's all.
And that's what I mean. He's feeling it legitimately and as he should. But he doesn't. Even if Yoda has to pull him down to make it faster, he wouldn't go down and fall into that darkness and despair permanently. He would pull himself out of it as a true Jedi should. And Yoda pulling him out faster, it works all the more for me. I like that these are the kind of discussion that's being had in this scene.
Right. And what's great about Obi-Wan is that he's such a great Jedi despite being human. Like it's a little different for Yoda, like I was saying before, because he's already at that level. But what makes Obi-Wan great is because that struggle's there and he's able to do it. And one of my favorite lines, which does relate to the greater story, because it's one of the reasons I feel like he was able to thwart Anakin at the end, was the whole sequence where they talk about him taking in all of the pain and guilt and remorse and then just breathing it out, like breathing out his entire life and then letting himself be scrubbed clean and the Force showing through him.
Yeah.
Like that's probably my favorite
that's
entire
classic,
passage.
like mindfulness, just
of this entire sequence, and it's a great setup for what he needs to do to be able to do what he does at the end of the movie book story. So yeah. All right,
and we're seeing each of these steps as well. Sorry, in separate scenes. Yeah. This isn't all one scene. This is the initial reaction, the talks of Yoda, the multiple talks of Yoda. In fact, the different points of what they're focusing on at the time. It's not like this immediate process that just happens. It takes time for everyone, which it adds so much more depth to what we're seeing, and particularly when they get to the temple.
Yeah, so we cut to Mustafar briefly with Vader arriving,
that's pretty much what happens.
Take care of the separatist leaders.
Yeah,
right. But the line the resemblance is deceptive. I think is pretty badass actually.
I like that, And after that, I hate this scene. Like, he's
Yes.
so over the top, corny, cheesy.
And I want-
I
yeah, I
actively
want to talk
hate
about that
this
too.
part of the
Yeah.
book. It's one of the only. I think it's the only part of the book I could say I hate. Like, the things he's saying to them, like when it intercuts like between just the corny like kill you puns that he like
Yeah.
has.
The
That they're
bond
Because
Thank
terrible.
you.
Connor mentioned earlier that in this sequence he should have been more willing to kill and may not been as depressive, but this goes way too far.
Puns.
Yeah.
He's literally
there's
making
literal
puns.
We're not kidding with this.
It should have been. There should have been a gleeful aspect to this, but it shouldn't have been Anakin making fucking Bond one-liners and actively taunting and tormenting them.
Yeah.
It just should have been Anakin just butchering his way through the room with a manic grin plastered on his face.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, it should have been like psychotic killing spree, not oh, I'm the big bad guy. Be scared of me.
It should have been Norman Bates, not Dr. Evil.
Here, I'll sum up my feelings on this scene just with one line from the book. I am your reward, the Sith Lord said. If you don't find me handsome,
Yeah.
no more.
It's
That's how I
it's
feel.
not a bad line, but it's the worst placement you could possibly put, and for the wrong character for the wrong dramatic moment. It's ridiculous.
It needs another universe, another
Yeah.
time, another context. Like it's just no,
Yeah.
just please.
And it's
I
even
had
more
actually
awkward
forgotten
in the audio drama.
I'd actually forgotten how much I hate this. Like, because like, I kind of block it out, I guess, or I forget that it's a part of the book. It's just tonally weird too. There's like a part where one of them goes, "I'll give you anything you want," and like he like
Thank you.
kills him and goes,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Thank you," but he doesn't say it like it's a stupid line. He shouldn't say anything anyway, but he goes, "Thank you," like a kid getting like candy from like a stranger, like
Wait,
it's
was that in the
like-
audiobook? That's how it was.
Yeah,
It's very
performed?
cheery.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
very
that's-
cheery and like just
Thank you.
completely
Like, it's literally
100%
just like
wrong.
that.
Jeez.
Wow.
It's
okay.
It's the worst. It's just terrible. But
Meanwhile,
passing
he's hewing
over that,
someone
I like to think that he was just meeting he was approaching his deadline and he just had to like do something. The movie was about to come out.
Sith-eyed,
And...
golden Darth Maul-eyed Anakin. Thank you for letting me kill. I mean, it's like, what
He's very
happened,
much in the depths
Stover?
of a psychotic episode, clearly.
It was just too much.
All right, so
and then there's
back
like
to
another.
Coruscant. Oh wait, you have more. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it's Coruscant. So
Oh.
I like the thought, jumping right back a little bit, like that went into them going, yeah, we can go there. It's not it's not going to be like a obvious trap because they don't know that we're alive and you're kind of in the clear. So they put thought into that, like we can go there. When they got there, their way of getting there was we're going to pose as a hunchback with like a Jedi baby.
I
And
must admit though,
The transition.
kind of hilarious.
Can I
Yeah,
say
there are
this?
two things.
No, wait.
Yeah.
This is so inappropriate and so like off the wall. I kind of respect it. Like I mean, it's I like the balls it takes to write. This is such tonal whiplash to me. Like the Jedi have just been eradicated, and you imagine like their Jedi spirits looking down. And their grandmaster is like a cradle, and Obi-Wan's going, "I got the Jedi baby here for you." You know, I mean, it's just madness. It's madness, and they've got to be going. This is like we're screwed. Like we died for this. Like this is ridiculous. But I kind of respect it.
Meanwhile,
It's
being
so
cut
awful.
between, the separatists being slaughtered by a manic Anakin, and it's like
Yeah,
this whole
yeah.
chapter's just weird.
Khaled, can you do that line for us in that like accent? The look at I got here. I mean, look at Jedi baby. And
I'd
can,
rather
can you
not.
do it? Please, can you do it? You're the only one who has the accent.
I'd rather
Do it,
not.
Do it. You can do it.
Oh, do it.
Maybe another
Khaled,
time.
please.
Come on, Callan.
Oh, the comments are yelling at you.
I
Right now.
need the line anyway. But yeah, the thing I want to talk
Look
about
at
is
I got
scene.
here. I mean, look at it's a Jedi baby, isn't it? That's the word. That's the line.
I'm not
the
doing
audio
it.
drama
I'm
on my
not doing it.
phone.
Okay,
I
fine, I
refuse
won't
to
push you.
demean Obi-Wan that way.
Okay.
But
It's
Okay.
not even Obi-Wan's voice.
I
It's
know.
like he's doing like a Obi-Wan crossed with Hagrid or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a Jedi baby. Sure as hell it is. Like he actually says that.
Yeah.
But
It's like what the fuck?
But there are
Like,
two
I mean,
things.
it's just so.
And then
crazy.
it cuts to the trooper's perspective as he's looking at Yoda. It's
yeah.
Figured baby he's ever. Yeah. Okay. But yeah.
there are two things I want to talk about this, and I can't even remember one of them. But the other one is the one thing I kind of. It's too ridiculous to use this as an actual justification, but if it was done a different way at a different time, maybe I like the idea that these two are such Jedi that they're able to kind of laugh in the face of death. They're they will carry on, and as they should, despite the struggle, even in this isolated pocket. But that's like it's super reaching, and it's the wrong moment for it.
Yeah, that part doesn't work for me.
It's just
That's exactly.
And how did
I
they
know you
come
were
up
trying,
with...
Callan. I know.
It's just like it doesn't work.
Can you imagine this?
And how did they
like,
come up
playing
with
in
this?
George
Like, what was,
Lucas's hands,
what was
like, as
the
a
planning
director?
that led to this? Sorry.
Yeah, the planning
Yeah.
stage. So what do we? And also that was the other point, actually. The redundancy. Why do they need to do this? With a snap of their fingers, they could kill everyone present, which is clearly their
Right,
intention
right.
anyway.
Why do they
need
even
the
do that?
subterfuge?
Which they end up doing.
I know, that's my point.
Like,
That's
like in the
the
movie,
plan.
they just cut to them automatically fighting clone troopers.
Yeah.
That's fine. You don't need that extra bit.
Yeah.
I wonder if you had like a word count quota, and they're like, oh, you need like an additional 1,000 words.
This is
Okay,
getting pretty
I'll-
dark. We need
It's
some
either that,
levity. And it's
or
like,
this
okay,
was in,
you
like,
want
the
some
original
levity?
version
I'll
of
give you
the
some
script.
levity.
Oh my
Imagine.
god.
And
If this
actually,
is
we
made
didn't
it-
see it because George just cut to the middle of the battle.
Could have
Fun-
been in the
Like,
original
oh my
version of the
God.
Fun
script, like,
fact.
knowing
Oh,
this
no,
stuff
no,
from
Fun
you're
the
right.
fact: Lucas did edit
You're totally
this,
right.
and he
You
even
don't think about he did do the final edit on it,
Yeah.
but think about it because Obi-Wan does have his hood on in that scene in that context, so
Oh,
he
he
would
was
have been
doing-
playing up the
oh,
Hunchback.
oh,
Oh
that
my God, we
means-
just
but
landed on
That means they
something.
would have actually shot it.
Right.
That
Or-
means
or-
that means there's
or
a
at
vault
least rehearsed it.
somewhere with those unedited.
Hunter
Oh
Face,
my
right.
The funny thing though, the
Oh
funny
my
thing is,
God.
can you imagine being the CGI guy who had to animate Yoda doing that? He's like,
All right.
I was given Yoda, and this is the
I
scene they give me.
I think
It's
we
like-
shat on this enough. I
Yeah.
think we shat on.
Yeah, I don't. It's just the only little kernel I want to leave you with is it's almost like an Adam Sandler beat where he's
Yeah.
like, "What makes you think of Jedi Baby?" My lightsaber. The first clue would be, and it's like, it's just this is so bad. But anyway, let's move
So
on.
it's too
we
bad.
go to the Senate.
Empire.
Bail.
He had Empire.
Yeah.
Oh my god, talking about ridiculous. I'd forgotten how much they amped it up in the book. He went ham. I mean, Stover,
Oh, yeah.
not just Palpatine. Like,
It was it wasn't just Palpatine making his proclamations. It was Palpatine delivering a Hitler speech.
not even
You
that
know,
though.
like-
It's the Senate. It's the Senate going, "Wow, yeah, what?" It's like, do you have any idea what you're doing right now? And not just the ludicrousy of applauding a dictatorship, but just the things he's saying. He's like, "Cheer with me, everyone! Security, peace, justice." Can you imagine Palpatine doing that? Security, peace, justice, and they're all just, "Yeah, woo!"
And
So
the
what the hell?
And he's the cadence almost to me is like, stop, drop, roll. Like come on, children, like get the message.
Precisely.
Let's go.
I know
Join
what
me
he
on
was
this.
doing.
Precisely. He's literally
Like,
saying, "Come
it's
on,
like,
everybody, let's
yeah,
do it."
come on, say it with me. Like I mean, it's just, oh my god, yeah.
He's
So
having
this
fun
version
with
of
this
the story,
scene,
that's how
Stover.
Liberty died.
Yeah, and also that wonderful line. I know it's kind of out of place because it's Padme, and it everything about her situation is distorting a bit. But that singular isolated moment, I always loved. So this is how Liberty died.
Yeah, I like her
to
saying you
thunderous
have to vote for
applause.
him. Get Mon
That was
on
good.
board. Get
Yeah,
everybody
that
else.
was brilliant.
You
Yeah,
guys keep
that
doing
explained
what
that.
you're doing. Yeah.
That's her doing. That's like her giving the charge to him because she kind of is like self-aware that she's may not be coming back from whatever like she's planning that she's not really disclosing to him. What I don't like is the specificity where he's like, but this could take 20 years. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, it
yeah.
does. Do you have the script in hand? Just,
Exactly.
Yeah,
just say
precisely.
years. Just say
Forgot
years.
that.
Just
Decades,
say decades
something
or
like
years.
that. Yeah,
Oh my god, did
that's
they
the
really
only
say
part
20 years?
that-
I missed that part.
but I
wanna
do
reread
love
it.
that bit because it gives her agency and
Padme
it explains
actually
the Bail
has
and
some
Mon Mothma
involvement
situation.
in the rebellion.
Yes,
know?
yeah, to an extent. Yeah, she was a kind of initial spark of help, which is nice. But even that line change, from thunderous applause to cheering and applause. Like I don't know why that I liked that line a lot, and I feel like it was less good in the book now.
It may not have been written that way, like in the original treatment. Maybe they came up with that later, like on set or
That's
something.
true, yeah.
Maybe that was the original line. I don't know, but yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Thunderous applause is much
Yeah,
better.
and the delivery of it,
Yeah.
I really like that line. That isolated moment could have been like super powerful if everything else wrapped around it
Right.
was good. But yeah, this scene is
Right.
just laughable. Like Palpatine is literally cheerleading at this point.
Okay, so moving on to Jedi Temple with the discovery of the younglings. I do like the idea. I got this impression that Obi-Wan did the trick thing that he did with the stormtroopers in A New Hope. Because then when they
yeah, of
They
course,
always-
yeah, that was what
yeah.
the intention was. Yeah.
Something.
Kind
which
of
is cool. I like that being there.
Yeah.
Also, I guess I forgot about this, but I forgot Sindralig's nickname was Troll. Is that a thing?
Yeah, the troll.
I don't
You
know
guys
how
remember
how
that.
the troll
Stern
teaches.
teacher. His students called him the troll.
Yeah, it is.
He
However,
was
weird that
stern and
Obi-Wan refers
grouchy.
to him by that one. It's like, is that the troll? That's not the moment to use a nickname when he's like lying
You'd
down.
be like, is that Drawlig? Like, or Master Drawlig, even better.
Yeah.
Well,
Precisely.
it's actually a little different, Kellen. It's like teary-eyed Obi-Wan going, "It's the troll."
Yeah.
Oh, wait, in the audiobook?
Audio, yeah.
Okay, that audio
It's the
clearly
troll.
that audio clearly dropped the ball on this part of the book.
It's very tonally weird to the point where I was like, wow, this portion is this isn't the part I like better than the movie at all. Like, you know, that's
And again,
what I was thinking.
now you're imagining Sindralig's ghost, you know, being like, really?
But
I
the,
can't escape it.
but the
even in
scene
death.
but the scene itself, though, aside from the use of the
Yeah.
word troll, obviously, I think it played very well. I like the again, it's that next step in Obi-Wan's kind of struggle
Yeah.
because he's struggling with all of this and how to deal with it.
And don't
he's-
forget we, Callan. You wanted to talk
Yes, yeah, and we, you know, poor loss
Yeah.
of we. That comes with like the holocron recording.
Which
as
we'll
well.
also do at some point.
Hologram
We'll do
recording.
Dark Rendezvous for.
Oh
for
yes,
this too.
we are doing Dark
Right.
Rendezvous.
I first read this book
We
before that,
are.
so I had no idea what the hell that was about. But
Right.
then
It just sounded like a random name. I was like, okay.
when I got to that book, I was like, oh no, this kid's gonna die. It's like-
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I had the same thing because I did the same order that you did. Although I was aware of it, because I remember seeing the Dooku Yoda book cover in like Barnes and Noble, and be like, cool. But I would rather watch the movie. And then so then reading it, I was like, same reaction you had. I
Yeah.
was like, oh no, this kid's going.
So, oh, Master
Yeah.
Anakin, Master Skywalker, I thought you were going to kill me. It's like, oh, gives him a hug. Oh, you don't want to do that. In the Dark Rendezvous. But anyway, yeah, the point was about the Obi-Wan as well, the struggle with him, but also Yoda. He's like, at this point, he's firmly got control of himself. Not that he was really ever losing it to start with.
Right.
And he's like, nope, job to do. You know, he was your master and I was his, but or lightsaber instructor rather. But you know, this is something we have to do right now. Focus.
And then he goes. Then they go to the hollow chamber and watch the recording.
Yes, and again,
Oh, did you guys believe-
that was the other thing I wanted to mention about specific points. Sorry, was Yoda talking specifically about that. You know, this will only bring you pain. You know,
Right.
you don't need the confirmation. He's not even trying to surge his feelings on that one. He doesn't want to touch that for obvious reasons because his feelings at the moment are not exactly fun.
And I like that he goes kind of dark with it too. He's like, I should have let them shoot me. I should Geonosis. We should have stopped there. Or Naboo. I should have been killed. Like, dang,
God,
Yeah.
that
man.
was-
But I still loved it
yeah.
though. Like, I'm
Yeah,
like, again,
precisely.
I love any human element of Obi-Wan and him being able to rise again above that. You know, I think that's the best thing about this guy.
Why do we fall,
I like
Bruce?
how it's human and a believable flaw, and also it gives Yoda more like credibility to get stern with him. It's like, you got to pull it back.
Yeah.
We cannot do
We cannot afford to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because again, Obi-Wan would do that by himself, but he needs some time. They don't have the time, so Yoda's like, nope, gonna stick
Yeah.
to the ribs. You know, you're a master.
And
deal
again,
with this.
I love how they describe it that Yoda was as sympathetic as a roaster tree.
Yes, yeah. Told you I did. warned
He
you,
doesn't say
warned you
that.
were. He says pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like
Go
it
ahead,
is an I
Connor.
told
Wait,
you
no,
so
wait,
moment.
Connor has something.
The other thing I wanted to say is, like, one of the things he said that I should have died, the Zabrak on Naboo, I should have died there before I ever brought him here. And the sad thing is that particular line makes perfect sense, is human, but is also wrong, because not bringing Anakin to the temple in the first place wouldn't have fixed anything.
Oh,
If
of
anything,
It would have
yeah.
been the same thing. Well, I mean, maybe Sidious would have picked him up again or whatever, but
yeah, that's kind of the way I see it, though, because at that point in the storyline, he was a thing that Sidious knew about, and if he wasn't recruited by the Jedi, how long do you think Anakin would be wandering around free and on his own before
That's
a certain senator approached
But it
him?
is
on-
Well,
also
that's
a flaw.
Yoda's-
He's not thinking logically
Yeah,
right now.
precisely.
Yeah,
That's
Obi-Wan-
that's
it-
Yoda's
it's
If he thought
point.
this out, he'd be like, "Oh wait, no, never mind."
Yeah, that's
That's
Yoda's
knowledge
point. It's
that
the
we as
failure of
fans can
despair.
acknowledge as well. But like for
Panicking.
Obi-Wan, like he doesn't know that much
Oh,
about
yeah.
Sidious anyway, or like or how long he's known Anakin. You know, like I mean, I guess he can infer now, but you get what I mean.
Going off of the relationship between Sidious and Anakin, or Vader at this point, what do you think his plans actually were for? Because right now, in the way that they're hearing their conversation, it sounds like that he does want him to be like the greatest Sith ever. But
This is
granted,
like
like
those.
that's
It's an
Is that too
infamous.
long?
It's
Is
an
that too long?
infamous
sources of
debate.
flip flop forever.
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
that's what I'm
always
saying.
been
Like it's always been like, oh no, he wanted him to be injured on Mustafar, but it's like, but why would he? You know, if that's too
Again,
much,
it goes
The
back
thing
and
is,
forth so
I-
many
park
times
that.
a part of me, I like the idea that he genuinely sees in Anakin this perfect Sith Lord, like even more so than him, because he's just like impossibly strong in the Force. But at the same time, my appreciation for Palpatine as a villain is that he doesn't give a damn about anybody else, like because that's what he portrays in Jedi, and like to me, like that's Palpatine. Like in my mind, that's the Palpatine I grew up with. That's Palpatine. Yeah. Forget the terminology or like the history of Sith. That character cares about himself. You know, he doesn't want to be supplanted by Vader or Luke or whatever. He wants a servant. But I mean, as far as like what the lore says, I'm not clelear.
For me, it comes down.
He's even referred to Vader as like his perfect, as like perfect creation in the sense that like, oh, sorry, were you gonna say? Sorry, Callan, I kind of walked over you there.
Sorry, no, I was the same thing. I was just gonna say that it's the prize. He's the perfect prize.
Right.
He's the Sith victory. Look what we've created. Look what I have created, and he wants to be able to.
He's
flaunt
almost
that
kind of like
more.
in awe.
Trophy. He's a trophy.
Yeah,
device,
precisely. At this point, he's
the
the representation of every victory that Sith have worked towards. So it's like he doesn't care about Anakin, even though when he's saying because one of the reasons for the conviction is when he's like, "Live, my apprentice, live." He's willing him to stay with him later on when Vader is ultimately defeated. But he doesn't care. He's not like I want you to live because I care about you, Anakin. It's a case of you represent the ultimate like victory for us. That's the way I take it anyway. But it genuinely is. It is.
To me.
Yeah, precisely. I don't want to put all this effort in for nothing. It genuinely is unclear though, because he could actually care. It's not. Yeah. I don't think it's likely because of everything he says and does post Vader turning.
He shouldn't.
He shouldn't care. Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, there's credence.
Me,
there's credence to the argument that he in some way does at least.
The biggest question mark for me, like even when I was a kid, was the way he kneels over Anakin on Mustafar. It was like he's like caressing him almost. Like oh, like look what they did to you. Like they ruined you. It's like he cares, but it's like this character shouldn't. So it's like he has a foot in both realms, and it's confusing.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like the idea of him doing, oh, look what they did to you, you poor thing. It's like a mocking thing. It's like look what I've done to you.
That's not the tone of it.
No, I know, but I like to.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. But I like to imagine that could have been a thing. Because that works in a much more sick, sinister, like, haha, look what the Sith have wrought, and look what you are, and you're ours, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do think the storyline might have worked a little bit better if Anakin being put in the armor actually was a deliberate thing that Palpatine did, because, well, one question I've always had, like, because of what we've been saying about Palpatine being an utterly self-centered character, I honestly never understood why he wanted to replace Vader in the first place, like cyborg Vader with Luke, because Vader was effectively the perfect apprentice. He was supremely powerful, so much so that pretty much no one else in the setting could challenge him, but his specific limitations made it so he would, at least as far as Palpatine saw things and understood them, they made it so he could never actually threaten him. Whereas Luke is the apprentice who could actually surpass him, and I'm like, why would Palpatine want someone like that around instead of basically a dog on a leash, which is what he has in Vader?
I'm not saying I disagree with you at all in that sense, especially because that takes into account sort of the all-encompassing history of Star Wars. But if you look at just like the context of like the films, to me, the reason he wanted to convert Luke is because it represents the ultimate spiritual victory over the rebellion. I've crushed them. I've caused their ultimate hero to join the dark. Like it's like.
And
he's like the devil.
that he feels like he'll be able to control, even just powerful being. Same with Anakin initially.
Yeah, it's like that's a question that like what you're bringing up. I think it totally has validity in the scope of like the lore. But if you just like look at like the scope of the films, I think it makes sense for him to want to do what he tried to do and failed to do with Luke, which is why Luke was so awesome.
Yeah, and Luke could have bit him in the butt too if he did get converted. Who knows? You know what I mean? But like, and what would have defeated Palpatine would have been his hubris of thinking, "Oh, I can," it would have been one of his undoings if he let that happen.
I can deal with you at any time, kind of thing. It would have restarted the cycle of the Sith, basically.
Right. Let's go into what should we go to next?
What did we just end on?
Yeah,
Padme,
we jumped off the
spiral.
And Kenobi.
Yeah, no. So we're gonna move on to Kenobi going to Padme and explaining what she doesn't officially know, that Anakin's the one responsible for killing all these Jedi, and that he needs to be stopped.
I mean, it is interesting how it opens with C-3PO briefly considering alerting the authorities.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was actually kind of cool.
Kenobi's one of those dangerous Jedi ruffians.
Lots of C-3PO point of view in general at this part of the book. Actually, he comes up quite a lot. Him and R2.
Yeah, he's kind of like her last remaining sort of companion, you know, like that's around her at any rate. The other ones are off doing things, and separate from her.
What did you think of him talking to R2? Because we get R2's actual voice which is weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I think he should always just be beeps, and that we interpret what those mean.
It's kind of one of those
like
things
it
that
being
doesn't
directly
need
translated.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't have anything actively against it because it. You know,
Right.
this is obviously what would happen. This is how R2 is going to talk, and there's nothing wrong about it. He writes R2 well. It's just it's so you're jarring because we're not used to it.
Yeah, it's jarring.
Yeah, it's weird.
It
Again,
sort of
again,
took
even
away a
more
little
so
bit
in
of
the audio
signature
drama.
charm for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes away the charm from R2D2 because I guess nerds can go into like Empire Strikes Back, and when the little basic comes up when he's talking to Luke before they go to Dagobah, you could translate that and figure out.
Is that
that's
basic
what he was saying.
actually accurate?
I don't
Because I would have
I
thought
don't
it
know
was
if it's
before it
accurate
was
or not.
established as a thing.
But if it's gibberish, that's great because it needs to stay gibberish. But if someone went back and goes, "Oh no, this is what he was saying. This is how R2 speaks," I'd rather just not know. That's the reason why it's in a language that we don't understand. You know, you're not supposed to like understand R2. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about R2. I think it was silly.
Personally, I always like the idea of R2 just like imagining that the beeps are instead just him like being super wry, sarcastic, and profane.
Oh,
like, just
yeah, I think-
full on
I think
potty
that's
mouth.
I think that's everyone's interpretation of R2, to be honest. Just from the way C-3PO reacts to him all the time.
I think there's some YouTube videos of that. But anyway,
Do we think Obi-Wan planted this in Padme's head so that he could follow her? Like he wanted her to
Interesting
be like,
point.
no, never. Or did
It's-
he intend to go with her? Like they go together to
I get the impression that he was thinking either way works. I'll try for this, and if it
Yeah.
fails, then I'll just inevitably follow her. I mean, it wasn't like I'm going to manipulate her into going after Anakin. It wasn't like that kind of thing. It was just a either or situation.
what gets me is his line from the previous chapter. Where he's like, I think I know where to look. You know. So I think that might have that.
Because
that
anyone
kinda,
who does know it would be her.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
makes sense.
that kind of tells me that there was like some premeditation to this.
Worth noting,
It's
just
like the
because
one
you mentioned that.
surefire compass he's got that'll take
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah,
like
it'll
that road will lead to
all
Anakin.
roads lead to Anakin. Yeah, precisely. But sorry, just because you mentioned it there, Evan, and we didn't mention before. One note from that segment when he's musing about that that we didn't specify was he talks about Padme and he's thinking, I think I know why this happened, like, or at least how to an extent. And Yoda hammers down on it. Why does it matter? He chose to ultimately. That's all that matters right now. The why is, don't give him excuses, which I like. Both sides of the kind of him
They also
struggling
point
and also
out
the reason
that
for it.
Yeah, the choice because they point like Yoda's like it's beyond even Sidious to make someone fall, which I like that little bit of dialogue.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to throw that
It's
out
cool
there.
to say in the vacuum, but
I
it
agree.
is.
At the same time,
he
it's like
did
the
fall.
question. The question of why is very important because it's the question. It's also the question of what did we miss? Where did we fail? How did we figure into this happening? Which to me, it's like for me, when I look at Yoda saying why doesn't matter, all that matters is what is. To me, it's like it looks an awful lot like a deflection.
To me, the way I read it is very similar to like what he like later tells like Luke, like where he's like, once you start down that path or whatever, it's like, well, that's not quite true. No, is it Yoda? But it's like for his purposes, I just for what I need to get done today, for what I need to accomplish with the short time I have like available, this is the reality. So it's like he's selling like a half truth just for the sake of expediency,
From a certain
which isn't
point of view.
necessarily yeah, from a certain point of view. Right. But it's like I there's that conversation is definitely one that they should be having if in like the hereafter,
Yeah.
like when we
In
have time
hindsight.
for that.
Yeah,
But like
precisely.
right now, no,
We don't have
it's
time
like,
for this shit, Obi-Wan. but at the same time
Uh,
acknowledging it, yeah. Sorry, I just want to mention that
back
because we
to
did gloss over that
Mustafar.
particular moment.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yes,
That's
but
fine.
the Obi-Wan Padme moment that we haven't talked about, the kind of emotional side of that, because obviously the reason he went to Padme was to get this response from her, or at least some response to get him towards Anakin. But also there's an emotional connection because he is revealing this deep dark secret or this horrific secret that
Right.
she's going to gloss over. So younglings, a dime a dozen.
Yeah, and obviously we get the whole Anakin's the father and all that.
Yes, that reveal as well. Yeah.
Sorry. It's so
Yeah.
It's funny that this is to me is probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie, and Ewan McGregor is carrying the entire thing on his back.
Despite
Padme's just-
almost laughing as he does it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
Well,
Natalie
yeah,
Portman's
everyone
face-
pointed
allegedly.
that
I
out.
mean,
They killed youngling.
Yeah.
yeah. But John Williams needs to be given a lot of credit because
Oh,
that
yeah.
score sells the moment more so than the acting does for me. That's like the Anakin Dark Deeds track is playing during that bit, and that for me really like just brings home like the gravitas of what's going on.
Yeah. I agree with both of you. The acting, there's only so much you can do with that material, and they did their damn best. But the thing that pulled it off was definitely the music. They kind of tied it all together.
And also like that's the other reason why I'm have such hatred for like what Anakin's doing with like the cheesy puns, because like that's a complete crossroads like with this tone that I much prefer in the movie, like with that music and just the savagery of what's going on. It's also cut nicely with Palpatine doing his like taking over the Republic and forming it. That's one of the things I thought. Forget the obvious parallels to real world politics. I think that is a well done sequence in the movie. As much as I have my criticisms of it, I think that was well directed and shot.
Agreed.
And scored, obviously.
Agreed. Yeah, always scored.
Moving to Mustafar.
Yes.
Anakin or Vader explains to Palpatine that the separatists are dead, and Palpatine says he feels something, like he doesn't know what. He just tells him to be mindful, and I like that he goes like, and he goes like, "What? That's what I would have got from the Jedi. That's what I got from Obi-Wan. Like I thought you would deal with the answers."
Yeah,
Fuck you,
like
man.
Yeah, but I think it's hilarious how he's only been on this team for like 5 minutes.
Precisely.
It's like, I'm already done with you. But at the same time, I like that because it is like I've given you my soul basically. I've killed everybody, and now you're telling me that you don't really know this secret that your master knew. It's like, and you just have vague impressions. I'm right back where I was at the start of all this.
Yep, and just like you said, it's 10 minutes into it's the first day on the job, and he hasn't had a single lesson, and he's already willing to betray this, and it's so Sith as well. It makes sense that Anakin gets right to that point of, well, I'm going to take you out in day one, because that's who Anakin is at this point. He's fallen so hard and fast that of course this is what he's thinking about. The sneering, like he's finally been given you once you like Tyrion to Cersei, and once you've taken, it's hard to chain a dog when you put a crown on its head. It's the same thing with Anakin now. You've let him unleash his power and get whatever he wants. Good luck putting him back in his cage. It's just it makes sense. It fits. And also it's very satisfying to me to know that Sidious is ultimately going to get, at least at this stage in the story, going to get screwed, because I hate that this is all going so well for him. It's like, oh, you bastard.
Well, it goes well for them until it doesn't, because like they always overstep. That's what I really loved about the Plagueis book. But in any case, and he does basically create his own worst enemies just by being who he is. He just enjoys to appear to success before that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
But yeah,
also, I know it's subtle, but I kind of like how it describes when he sees Padme and he's about to go out on the bridge. He's like reassembling his Anakin Skywalker face.
Yes.
It's almost like he's kind of still in denial about what he's truly becoming, and I don't know. I like how that's
it's really good because
he's like trying to fool himself into being like, oh, I could still do this.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I do like is
how hypocritical it was, because he hated that she did that to be a politician like face. Just a little while ago.
Yeah, and also you said we didn't get. He hasn't had even one lesson, and I agree, Matt. But he kind of had a quasi lesson zero with the whole look how
he
to
felt darkness,
how to look on your emotions, and how to kind of look at it from a third person perspective, and and assess. And the second that happened, and when he found that cold mountaintop, as Sidious said, that's now him. He can't stop doing that. You can't turn that off once you've had that kind of quote unquote enlightenment. So he lost everything that connected him to the good parts of himself in that moment as well. That's why here he's having to reassemble it. Okay, this is interesting. Let me look at what makes me Anakin, and let me put it back on. It's not just off the cuff reaction now. He's actively having to think about it and making it conscious. Which it's just, I love how that is the ultimate kind of doom for him. Even though that was also all of his worst parts back in the day, it was also his strength.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, it's also the big doom of the dark side itself, because the dark side is all about entertaining a god complex. You're trying to bring every aspect of your universe under your conscious control so you can micromanage it. But the problem is that eventually you just come to the point where there's too much to manage, and now you're just being overwhelmed by the breadth of it. There's a reason why all of these things are not under our conscious control. There is a reason why I do not consciously control my heart rate.
Yeah, it's about taking that with, as the Sith way is with all things, it's about taking that control and forcibly submitting it to your will. But you can't do that to yourself without serious psychological damage. It's why the Jedi way. It's funny because it's almost Jedi-like. What Sidious is saying is almost the kind of Jedi approach to look at your emotions, assess them, and keep it. But instead of keep them
that's what it
controlled,
really is.
it's let them burn
it's
free.
Being a master
Association.
of
It's like an
this
association combined with
total opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is the fact that a lot of the true masters of the Force kind of reach this point where no matter what aspect of the Force you adhere to, it's always the Force itself always comes first. As a Jedi, you're a servant of the Force, you obey its will, nothing else matters. As a Sith Lord, the Force is the source of your power, and it's something that you have to, nurture and maintain because it's a useful tool. So no matter what, everything else is always secondary, and because the Force itself is such a high and mighty thing, everything else is always secondary by a pretty big margin.
And both sides have different gradients. People on both sides of the spectrum will have different lengths they will go to on both ways. Some people will, even Jedi will view, like Dooku, for example, Mace, Plo. They will view the Force as a lot more pragmatically than some people like Obi-Wan, Yoda, Kit Fisto, for example. You get the different variants on personality. It's not just all black and white, which I like. But for Anakin, who was one of those kind of go with the flow, even if it's your flow above everything else, he's now had that disassociation, which is what ultimately makes him so powerful as Vader, because this is what prepares him. That line of thinking is everything about Vader, but it cuts him off from Anakin. He's no longer. That's the thing that dooms him. Even to the point where he doesn't really appreciate his love for Padme now, because he doesn't love her. He's just seeing, oh yeah, I can see that love. He's not just immediately feeling it. Even though he kind of is. You know what I mean? This is, again, like Evan said, disassociation.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to the Chancellor's office with Yoda confronting the new Emperor.
I love the image of the
Empire
hologram
Day.
favoring. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Happy Empire Day.
Let me be the first to tell you, Happy Empire Day.
And the reason why I like this version is that, as far as Palpatine's concerned, this is just another meeting with Yoda in his office where he's trolling him.
Yeah.
It's just for the first time ever, he knows that Yoda sees through it, so he feels no need not
Drops
to go
all pretense,
not to go wild ham on this. And,
if only you knew.
We don't get
to do this.
I like the
we don't get the hand
mild,
swipe and him knocking out the two guards.
Yeah, or the head over heels knocked over the.
Yeah, no, thank God for that. But
way to undermine the villain.
Everything that involves Palpatine is awkward.
Yeah.
When Mos Amida leaves, it's also actually in a hurry. He's not just strolling.
Yeah, well, I'll
I
just
love
casually walk.
how awkward that is in the film, because it's just like, I've just.
Oh, you guys have to do your thing right here? Yeah.
Well,
Some Jedi, okay.
have fun.
in my office
You
then
kids have
and ignore
fun.
this,
It's like,
yeah.
I forgot. Oh crap! I forgot I was in the scene. I need to be written out. Let me just walk. I'll just stop. It's the real life equivalent of a cartoon kind of sidestep, like woot, 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 as he goes off screen. But yes, this is much better.
I like the mild shit talk session that goes on here, like where Yoda comes in and he's all, oh, so recently, like a Sith apprentice, and so soon without a master, like, or whatever he says. Like he basically says, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Is what he's wrong, but I mean that's what he's saying. He's just, oh, I'm here to end you, like Yoda style. And it's just funny to me how he has composure, but it almost seems immature. You know what I mean? It's almost like that's the start of like a rap battle or something.
Yeah, he's still Yoda. He's not quite the Avatar of the Light at this moment. That he hasn't brought that power forth, so he's got that that personality attached to him.
It's entertaining to me, but it feels out of character, even though it's not that inappropriate. But it just doesn't. I can't really see Yoda say.
He should be more about business rather than the kind of trappings of the scene.
Yeah, it should almost be like the earlier interaction between Palpatine and Windu, where Windu's just constantly like, what are you doing? It should have just been Palpatine just trolling him and Yoda shutting him down.
Yeah, it's like, let's just do this, shall we, kind of thing, rather than stop waffling.
Like,
I've had enough of your...
She's aside, that's kind of what goes on in the film, like, to a degree. I kind of like... That's what I mean, is like this portion of the book, I don't consistently like it better than the film, the way that I do the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
So
God
then
they
we
got rid
cut
of the
back
awkward
to-
dialogue though, because that.
Well, let's get all the way to the end of their fight, so that it's out of the way.
Oh, we're doing
because
all-
Anakin
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Obi-Wan.
it does cut
Anakin
back
and
and
Obi-Wan
forth.
should be at the end.
Yeah,
completely.
Okay.
agreed. So yeah, the Yoda fight goes out effectively with him gradually evolving into that avatar of the light, fountain of brightness, as it's described in the book, and Sidious effectively becoming the shadow, the demon. He's very much a monster in this scene. I love the portrayal of that. You can envision, obviously, it's not what's actually physically happening in the scene, but you can envision shrouds of black tendrils and the blade kind of being held by a great big amorphous shadow and darkness, which I love. Just the visual of that kind of metaphysical visual that they're both physically seeing of each other, even though it's not what's actually happening in the scene. I love the prose of it.
Yeah, he's really good at that kind of stuff, especially because how do you make like a sword fight between space wizards should sound like more larger than life than they're just fighting with swords. So like what they describe Palpatine as having like wings or like almost
the sleeves
it's just,
as well. The flowing sleeves will keep going up as like that kind of tendril of black.
Yeah, but it's just to me it's like I just like how I don't know I like this scene as is in the film. Like this is one of the scenes I like in Revenge of the Sith is the Yoda versus Palpatine. So this I don't see as like a
once they
massive
actually get to the Senate rotunda, because
it's really awkward before that.
I thought we already covered
after
that.
that's really nice. Yeah.
Agreed. But so I don't think that needed like massive improvement, but it really helps to be just in his head, in Yoda's head, especially in the moment where he realizes that he just doesn't have it. The famous
right. It's not necessarily a blow by blow fight. Yeah, it's more of psychological, mental fight that's going on, and that's the best thing to do for the situation.
Mm-hmm. It's like I don't even feel like a lot of people go, I wish this fight was like longer. I don't. Like I got what I need.
Pretty long already.
Yeah.
It seems shorter in the book given the nature of how it's portrayed.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand it in the book sense, but the film, definitely long enough.
I think my only criticism of the fight as it is in the film is that it kind of portrayed the end of the fight as ending on more of a stalemate with Yoda just deciding to leave, whereas I prefer the book portraying it as more of a straight up, no, Yoda beat Palpatine. Sorry, Palpatine beat Yoda. He blasted him full in the face with Force Lightning. It's like it was Palpatine winning and Yoda deciding, okay, I'm done.
See, I actually would prefer the blending of the two. I would have liked
face with lightning though, but okay.
Well, yeah, he got hit when he leaps in the book.
In the book, the whole thing that. Yeah, it's like
Yoda leaps and he gets blasted by lightning full in the face in the book.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like. Yeah. I would like the blending of the two. So have it be a stalemate, but have Yoda in as we're seeing in his headspace deciding he can't win this. At the very least,
it needs to be more definitive. Yeah. Well, I think it is pretty definitive.
At the very least,
because he retreats. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's actually
the reason I like that is because even if it's just a case of I'm not sure if I can win this, even though it is definitively that he knows he can't or thinks he can't here, the fact that he knows, more importantly, he has to live. That's why I like the idea of retreating, because otherwise it's like
they didn't have that moment that he needed to live. It just looks like he was kind of just
precisely
like, okay, I sucked. I'm out.
In the film it's like, Yoda, what are you doing? You have a duty to perform here. Even if you die, fall on your sword, please. Well, what are you doing? Like in the book, it explains that he needs to survive. It's like, a problem this is. I need to think, raise the order again and train the next generation.
Both kind of go out on a bad note in the films. Like Palpatine's hanging up there going,
and that's my exact
like,
point. What we should have had was what we had in the book, which was Palpatine standing on the Senate platform. The triumphant shadow. I've won. Yes. Hey, where's Yoda's body?
Yeah, precisely. It should have been like a.
I'm more fine with the idea of the stalemate aspect of it, and that they both got pushed back. I'm cool. I would have preferred Palpatine being like on the pod and not like hanging and dangling from it for sure. But the fact that it was more of a case of like their powers bouncing off of each other, like I think actually makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I have the same thing. I like the stalemate idea.
More powerful entity than Yoda for sure.
In terms of physical force, absolutely, yeah, no question. That's the nature of the dark and the light. At least for Yoda's, actualization of the light.
Right.
His version of being an avatar, it's not the same as Luke's, for example. But yeah, I just wish they could have had more of a stalemate that would have ultimately ended with Palpatine winning had Yoda not decided, yeah, of course I need to live. That's just the way I would have portrayed it. And you kind of
Right,
need to
I
blame-
agree. That moment needs to be there to be like, yeah, if you continue fighting, you're going to die, Yoda. Like that
Yeah,
should
well,
have been better established.
Yeah, just kind of uncertain. You know, even if it's just a case of I don't know, and that uncertainty leading towards, but I need to live, so let's not risk it.
Or maybe
it
just
makes
a
it
bit
more of a
where
match
it's like-
for the two against each other rather than one being supreme over the other.
It's
I like
like
that
maybe
idea.
show a bit where Yoda successfully deflects Palpatine's lightning with 2 Menace, but then after he finishes, it's like he crumples to one knee looking tired as fuck for a second before he jumps back into the fray. It's like he realizes, oh shit, I'm starting to burn out. I can't keep this up for much longer.
Well, it's described in the book, you know, he's struggling to maintain the kind of lightning cage that he's erupting around the two, so it does kind of establish that front. But to me, it's just about the merging of what we actually see and what the headspace of the two are. I think it could have been refined a bit. But yeah, it's a good scene that plays out in both sides either way. As long as you cut out the early start of the fight, obviously. But moving
Also,
over on...
I think it's worth mentioning, the book establishes that he kept his lightsaber. He didn't lose it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which has kind of been retconned out at this point, but we won't discuss that.
But
Wait, him not having his lightsaber was retcon?
yeah, in the new
Because
canon.
he doesn't have it in
Yeah,
Empire, so I don't think he shouldn't have it.
Well,
Honestly, I
I know,
never
but
knew
like-
he had one until Attack of the Clones, and I always thought it was kind of lame initially that he
Right.
had one, but that's different.
Well, the
Well, no,
thing
no,
is,
I
is
meant
that...
like in the movie, it's like you don't see him retrieve it, but in the book, it establishes that he did retrieve it.
Mhm.
However, in the new Disney canon, it's established that he did lose it.
Mm.
Sorry, I didn't explain that too well.
Well,
No,
the
that's fine.
funny thing is that the book itself shows Yoda retrieving his lightsaber and using it as part of his escape. And the thing is that I had also read the one of the Star Wars Locations books, the one for the original trilogy, and when it was giving the layout for Yoda's hut, that book actually showed his lightsabers actually still in his possession. He just left it in storage. He never bothered pulling it out of the trunk.
I think I like the idea better that he actively chose not to use it anymore, not that
yeah,
he lost
precisely.
it.
He had
You know
it
what I
kept
mean?
and just
Yeah.
kept it away. You know, I'm putting away the
Yeah.
warrior.
I mean,
putting away the warrior.
if for no other
becoming,
reason,
you know, the
he
sage
certainly
again.
wouldn't have had any occasion to
Well,
use
yeah,
it.
of course,
Like,
yeah.
or like where he would have needed it, you know.
Yeah, so
but
he just had it, but in storage, because at this point it's like, yeah, I'm not going out and I'm not fighting again. I am literally too old for this.
Fun fact, when I was little, before seeing Attack of the Clones, I used to think that Yoda's weapon was his Gimmer stick, and he would just enhance it with Force energy and just use that to block lightsabers.
That
Kinda
would,
like the
that would have
kinda like
also
Bodo
been
Bass.
cool. Yeah, I've never had an issue
Yeah.
with... I've said it before, I've never had an issue with having a lightsaber. I just don't like the way he uses it.
Anakin and Obi-Wan, Mustafar.
Yeah.
Well, first we got Padme, you know, obviously.
Who cares about her? She's out of the book now until her death.
Well, does anyone have any? I mean, does anyone have any comments about how, you know, because they do give her more dialogue, obviously, in this.
That's true. Oh yeah.
It's,
I don't.
they do more with
Because
her,
I
but
think
it's just the same thing we've
we
already
talked
discussed.
enough about how we felt about her. I feel like because it's still the same issues that persist, and even some of the compliments we give to her, like still, like we would just be reiterating what we've been saying already about
Yeah.
her.
Right.
Everything we've said about
In the
Padme
scene.
still holds true here, even if the context is slightly
Right.
different. And but to the book's credit, it does do more than the film. That's the only thing we can really say about. But that's obviously true pretty much throughout the entire book, isn't it?
Right.
Um,
Which again is why I said it's
yeah.
the same as what we said.
Yeah. But
yeah, the fight itself. It's long.
I don't have anything to say. Yeah, it's really long, and it's that way in this and in the movie.
Yeah.
There's more creative, but it's really only in ways that would only make sense in this book than like in a movie. Like that whole thing where like he triggers like his hand to like drop
Right.
something.
That's again
You
one of those
can't do
anime
that.
things where you need to have him have the
Would have
internal.
loved to have seen that. Yeah.
But you can't really like articulate that without like what Antoine just said. Like you can't really make that make sense in a movie. It would just look like Anakin just dropped the lightsaber. So
Especially
yeah,
like an
it's like
X-ray vision, and you see his like thing being like
yeah, the
manipulated.
That would have been.
There,
I mean,
there are ways
I
you
would
can.
have liked that personally.
There are
but-
ways you can do it, but not without breaking up the flow of the choreography. It would have
Right,
been a
right.
stop, strain moment, and then do it, which could work. But it's just I understand why they would steer clear of that.
I don't
I will say this. I was never much of a fan of them playing tennis with the lasers.
Oh god. Yeah,
Just-
that was a bit
yeah,
weird
yeah.
until it fizzles out.
Everyone goes, what the hell with that?
No, he's not talking about. He's
Um,
not talking about the lightsaber spinning session. He's talking about the actual
Oh.
the deflection of the laser bolts between.
There's
blaster bolts between the-
there's a moment in the novel
Oh
where
yeah.
they're beating
Yeah.
back bolts at each other again and again and again until it completely dissipates. They're basically Sorry, I call it the tennis moment.
No,
that's
that is. It's basically
fight.
lightsaber pong, and there's nothing technically wrong with it, but it does seem a bit just stilted compared to it stops the action basically from the actual fight, and it breaks it, especially breaks up the themes, because that doesn't really say anything about their expressions of lightsaber form. It kind of just like, oh, here's a thing we can do to a gimmick that we can add to the lightsaber duel.
For me, on like a technicality or technical level, it's always been true for me that Anakin would win a majority, because also you got to consider like all the things that he's been going through. He's like sleep deprived and everything, because this battle isn't really about technical skill. It's totally about emotion, because what's going on in the context of the fight, and Obi-Wan is the first one to get over that plight. The entire time he's like
into it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they're both going in with some sort of mental handicap.
Baggage.
For Anakin, it's like, oh, is Obi-Wan going around with my girl? He's trying to kill me. He's betraying me. The Jedi fucking suck.
I'm also slightly insane right now.
Yeah, he's insane at that point. And for Obi-Wan, it's I can't kill my brother. That kind of thing. And it's Obi-Wan's Jedi training. Again, that's why I was trying to allude to that from we were talking about Obi-Wan getting over himself a lot faster. And that's the reason why I feel like he would always take the majority in this fight context. But in terms of like an overall, like if Anakin isn't in the state that he is right now, technically he's still like a superior combatant, saber to saber. But that's how I always felt about this fight, like in general, overall.
My attitude towards this fight is a little bit different because, well, in a lot of ways, both combatants are simultaneously at their very, very best and at their very, very worst. Yes, they got the emotional baggage we mentioned, but because of that, I found it actually kind of bolstered them on a technical level. Like when Anakin started fighting, he didn't have to rev up to channeling the dark side and unleashing his rage and going hog wild. He was full force straight out of the gate because he was so fucked up. And Obi-Wan, with his restraint, was putting more effort into his defense. Instead of countering whenever the opportunity came, he was just purely focused on staying alive, which I ultimately think is the reason why he was able to stay alive, given what we know Anakin can bring to the table. Because Anakin's one of those combatants where it's like, when he's going like full dark rage, don't bother trying to fight back against that. You can't. Just get away. And that's pretty much what Obi-Wan is doing.
And what would have been great too if there was a Mace Anakin. It's really small aside. If there was an Anakin Mace fight, is that you would have seen the failing of Mace, because he probably would have tried to meet that head on and then later see Obi-Wan, who Mace also mentioned, oh, you're perfect for Grievous. See the success of that. I think that'd be kind of cool. But sorry, go ahead,
that would have all wrapped together very nicely. Yeah.
Right.
We got it in the video game, but it was pretty bad. I just throwing it out there.
Just because no one's mentioned this, and maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. I think the fight is too even in both versions. Like Anakin should be way better. Like because of what he's been built up to be, I always felt like this fight shouldn't have been like a focus on like this symmetry thing, like where like one is like a mirror image of the other or whatever. I always felt like I should be in fear for Obi-Wan here, and I'm really not. Like at any point, and the location is like primed for Anakin to just be like going nuts. Like I'm gonna pick up like a bunch of lava and like and throw it at you.
They never use the Force enough ever.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, if there's a character to do it with, it's this one. And if the setting is like so hog wild, and the reason why I like it is because there's so much potential for that to just backfire. Like, oh, I dropped it on myself by accident. I burned myself, or like it's. There's an infinite number of ways you could make like Obi-Wan turn it to his advantage, but he's at the losing end the whole fight. I mean, you could say he's like being backed into a corner the whole time or whatever, but
that's just his style, isn't it? It's not because he's being pushed any further. There's so many thematic elements to play. You can work with the environment as well. It goes on for way too long. Yeah. It just says, let's bring in a gimmick. Oh, let's have them swing because we've completely run out of all gimmicks.
That's where they just stopped trying. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Yeah. It's just like, what?
And the other thing I want to say is that so many people cite the effects limitations in the original trilogy. It's like, oh, they can't do it as good as the prequels because of what they were working with at the time, but the Empire Strikes Back duel, as far as I'm concerned, features probably the most compelling display of Force abilities in a lightsaber duel when Vader basically picks up every loose object and beats the crap out of Luke. And it's like, why couldn't they have something similar to that in any
Yeah, why
of the
can't they
fights?
continue that?
Exactly.
It helps that
Because even with
particular
that one, even
style.
that one's kind of dated because it's very much like a
Yeah,
all right,
but
we're
it
done
fits-
with lightsabers. Huh,
Yeah,
instead
but
of
it
being
fits
an integrated
Vader.
thing.
If the reason that works is
Right.
because it fits Vader's mentality. One, that he's kind of holding back at this point, and also that it's that mechanical kind of very steady movement. You know, it fits the atmosphere of the moment. But regardless, there's no excuse for them not doing it in prequels because budget. They have infinite budget when you're running with Star Wars.
Yeah.
You can do
So-
whatever the hell you want. There's no limitations on
Especially
it.
by this movie.
Yeah,
It would have been interesting if they built up like the symmetry of them being complementary parts of the same warrior like earlier in the book, but then have it be
Sure.
Anakin's fall to the dark side that
Anakin should have
offsets
transcended
the
Obi-Wan.
balance. Yeah. That would have. I think that would have worked better thematically.
And I mean, people can argue that he did, but you don't. In effect, like in that scene, it doesn't play out that
Doesn't
way.
quite
That's all
come
I'm
off
saying.
that- yeah.
I like the idea that he
Especially when they
tran-
have like a forced lock, and then it's.
I mean,
completely
yeah,
separate.
like he
And they
literally,
tie.
even the force push,
which
yeah,
doesn't make sense at all, even for the people who
Right.
support
Yeah.
Obi-Wan. To me, I like the idea that like you said, Matt, that Anakin transcends Obi-Wan, but it's still not enough. I love that that idea because it plays with the ideas of the dark and the light, and but the characters' personalities, their pragmatic natures, the way in terms of the way they think, their philosophies. I love everything about that in the idea, but you don't get to fully appreciate that because it's so like Antoine said with the symmetry, it's so one on one for matching it. They're so evenly matched all the way through, so it doesn't play right.
It also goes back to what I was saying earlier about how Obi-Wan Kenobi is basically the best at staying alive. It's like dealing with opponents who outclass him is almost his specialty because that's what he end up having to do. So it's like, yes, Anakin is the greater opponent, but that's okay because Kenobi's all about dealing with people who are above him.
If nothing else, on a story level, Obi-Wan is kind of his own little chosen one, as mentioned earlier, because things do kind of fall in his lap a lot. It's nice how things kind of always work out with me. When he's just escaped the water on Utapau and finds Grievous' ship, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to complain. And just goes straight for the starfighter.
So the fight continues onto the lava banks, and we get the sequence of them exchanging words, one last time before they separate again. It's not quite as awkward in this.
Well, it's quicker. That's what I like. It happens. It's not like, you don't underestimate my power. I have the high ground. It's none of that. It's just, and it's over. You messed up. You're dead.
And the thing is,
Which is how a fight would work.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Much more realistic.
It also just makes a lot more sense within the context of Anakin's character because he's not the sort of person who's going to stand there, glower, make some stupid, inane comment, and then jump. He's the sort of person who's like, oh, he's jumped over there. Pursue, just as a knee-jerk response.
Precisely. It's not just more realistic, it's more impactful. That sudden, what, Anakin lost? That kind of thing. Obviously, that was going to come from the nature of the originals. But it just that kind of jarring, and the fight's over. Because it lends so much weight to the whole conflict, and again it undermines that whole transcendence thing that was an idea that it doesn't really play in the film or the book, but if it had been there, that kind of undercut would have been really, really very Obi-Wan in character. I also like the emotional play out of his response to obviously Anakin burning there. He does actually, Stover addresses the whole, why didn't he mercy kill him? It's like, well, it makes no fucking sense, but I'm going to write in the fact that he has a time crunch, and also he's not feeling particularly merciful.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't actually think he deserves it.
Yeah, what do you think about that particular point?
Done.
That
The
whole
only
I'm
thing-
not
the
feeling
only
merciful
reason
thing.
why that the only reason why that doesn't play for me is like how he talks in the original trilogy, where he's like, he was a good friend. It's like you seem to like have primarily positive memories of like, I don't know. Can I rewind you back to like the last time you guys saw each other?
He's very much
It just seems
repressing
like that would have been
That
like
is
an
actually a
overhanging-
meme. It's a meme.
It is, yeah. It doesn't.
I don't know memes.
Yeah.
You know me. I'm technologically slow. I don't know what the people.
You're
are.
old man in a
Basically,
young man's
Smash,
body.
especially Smash cuts to him. That exact scene, like that transition.
Yeah.
But it's just a case of he has to kind of not manipulate, but steer Luke at that point in his life. So yeah, that's kind of the only explanation for him being that way, given the way things actually played out when the prequels were created. And again, this is stretching it to the limit. Stover is doing his absolute best, but he can't, make this make sense. For one, Obi-Wan would have mercy killed him, but he couldn't because originals. As well, the time crunch isn't that really realistic because he could just force push him into lava or throw a lightsaber or anything and then leave. He didn't have to run down to the bank, which I presume is much further in the book in terms of the time crunch.
I mean,
situation.
we get it.
It's
Anakin
just-
can't die because
Yeah.
Darth Vader's a thing. We have
The
to leave
book
it
had
be.
its the book had this whole thing take place on top of a cliff with Anakin falling to this little shore at the base of it.
Let's talk about the ending.
Yes.
I guess the major things we'll do
21.
is
Yeah.
Yoda and Obi-Wan talking about Qui-Gon, and then the birth of the
yeah.
children, and then Vader's
in the
real
book,
We
birth.
also,
we-
yes.
in the
So we
book,
got
we got the,
Palpatine rescuing Vader. We get
Yeah.
the whole,
Right.
live.
We talked about that
Wilson
already.
to
That's
live,
why I
yeah,
didn't
Yeah.
skip over
Yeah.
because we did mention it.
In the book, there's also a full-on dialogue between Yoda and the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn, which I heard had apparently actually been recorded, but it was
Yeah.
cut out of the movie.
Yeah, there was
No
a scene-
sense. There's no sense to that whatsoever.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. What the hell?
It's like Qui-Gon, like literally, like in the movie, he's just like, oh, I forgot, Obi-Wan. I've got training for you. I've been in contact with Qui-Gon's spirit, and I didn't tell anybody because
It only happened
Why?
5 minutes ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was not portrayed that way.
No,
in
I
the
know.
context
No, I
of
know.
2005.
No, I know, but it's but the actual whether that or the actual what
I have
happened
zero regard for the
makes no
Clone Wars
sense.
in that regard as well. Anyway, but yeah, and also, fucking, the Jedi should just know this. Like this,
Yeah,
this should
we've
just be
been over
part of the
before,
Jedi
yeah.
thing. But in any case, yeah. So Qui-Gon has like a dialogue with Yoda. They decide what to do with Padme dies in childbirth. If you've seen the movie,
Yeah,
Right.
this
It's
is
all
this
the
is the
same.
point
It's
where it doesn't
nothing
really
majorly that we
change.
can make commentary that novelization does different.
Yeah, we get
Yeah,
we get some more
it's like-
flavor. Like,
Except for
ridiculous.
Vader's birth, I would say.
the
Proper
Emperor Palpatine Surgical Reconstruction Center.
yeah, I
Pretty
was like,
serious?
what? They even gave it an acronym. Like, was it? It was stupid though. Whatever it was.
The MPAL Sir Recon.
Oh god, like what? How much use is that even going to get? Except for solely looking after Vader. But yeah, did we get some? I agree that the Qui-Gon thing is stupid, but I do want to make note that I liked, if it had to play out, I liked the way Yoda was kind of bowing to a new master. I've accepted a new master. I like the whole humble acceptance of a new. It's something that Yoda should never struggle with. He just does it. I like that it's portrayed as that. But also with the Bale taking Leia thing, I like the kind of joy that we get from him in that one. He's clearly overjoyed about
He
this
needs some
idea.
joy.
Yeah, and he deserves some. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's a lot actually more sentimental when you consider that they established in the EU at this point that him and his wife had been struggling to have children. At this point, even had a few miscarriages. So yeah, the joy is palpable. The joy is palpable.
It plays really nicely, and it's a good touch of hope for the future. Leading into A New Hope, funnily enough. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that he keeps the droids for the sake of passing them on to her. That my daughter will inherit the droids. The droids, I like it. Even though they do kind of kill C-3PO with a mind wipe.
Yeah, that's still brought up.
That's not pleasant, but understandable though.
Kind of had to be done.
But yeah,
Then we
all
get
that-
Vader.
yeah, the Anakin. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker forever. Just read it.
Gets
Just
dark.
read it. It's like
Just read it. Yeah.
It's
Basically, the internal monologue of Darth Vader waking up in the armor for the very first time, and now he's not fully human anymore. And I got my freaking I own Darth Vader, a 3D reconstruction. I know in very exhaustive detail just exactly what was done to him. I could list his implants for you, and yeah, it ain't pretty.
I mean, he has no lungs. That's not a pleasant visual of just from that one line in the book alone. But yeah, I agree with Matt. Read the book. Is the ultimate conclusion of that. Read that passage, but of course the ultimate review.
Nothing we
plus
can
we can
say.
say
That's
is read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the context of if that sort of Faustian bargain, if Palpatine's the devil and this is your reward, it works really well with that, and the whole book has been building up to this with other variations of how Anakin feels in the various moments, and this, if you were able to get this sense instead of the no moment in Revenge of the Sith, I think it would have really paid off with this.
That would have actually felt like
tragedy.
Yes, you
Yeah.
used the word. I was just going to say
Yeah.
tragedy. It actually sells as a tragedy.
Because that's what it should
So-
be. That's what it should be. The
And,
tragedy
and
of
this
Anakin
and
Skywalker.
this continues too in Dark Lord, which is our next Star Wars book review, which is good segue, because it's perfect for that.
Also, referencing Revenge of the Sith, the novel itself has made this constant theme of personifying Anakin's fear as a dragon, and in a metaphorical sense, becoming Darth Vader, he's truly been possessed by that dragon to the point where the dragon has become his physical aspect. It's like when Palpatine is looking at the armor and describing it from his perspective, it's like the underthrust grill work of its vocabulator might have suggested the jaws of a saurian predator built of polished blast armor. It's like, Vader does... The armor of Vader is very bestial in its aspect.
The thing that got me more than the actual physical representation was the fact that when he'd killed we didn't mention this before, when he's killed the Star Dragon, Dead Star Dragon, and it turned to dust. The next that scene of importance with him is him acknowledging that he was bitten on the foot when he did that, and now it's coursing through his veins as venom, and that's what he carries through to Vader. He will never be rid of that. I love that mental prison he's kind of building for himself. And it's just so in line with the dark and his own personal struggle with it.
Yeah, the dark side is infectious.
It's also the fact that
not for a while.
Finding that clean, cool mountaintop within himself that you mentioned earlier, it's like he got the ability to deconstruct all of his other emotions, but not fear. Fear is still with him. Why? Because at the end of the day, the source of the dark side's power and the source of its hold over you is fear. Like
much fear I sense in you, young Padawan.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like behind all of the malice, the psychosis, and the hatred that define all Sith Lords is just bottomless paranoia.
It is that fear that drives them to whatever end. For him, it was the loss of Padme. For others, it's the loss of control over their situation. For others, it's just physical fear. It's always there somewhere. And that will lead us nicely
into our last little poem.
Yeah, precisely. And before we move on to Rise of next time, I love the end line of this poem.
Shortest one.
Yeah.
It's the dark is generous and it is patient and it always wins. But in the heart of its strength lies its weakness. One lone candle is enough to hold it back. Love is more than a candle. Love can ignite the stars. Which is sort of like, even if darkness wins, you have the choice whether or not it has to always win, or like whether or not that state has to be permanent. You can change that. And it's like whether or not you give into despair. And also in the audio drama, or an audio book rather, that plays with the finale theme from Empire Strikes Back, and it works really, really well.
It also ties nicely into previous mentions in the book, as we said. The Mace philosophy of you don't need to win, you just need to fight. I love the idea of that pervading this entire book, because it fits the idea of Jedi, it fits the idea of the light, it fits the idea of that bright hope that will help against the darkness. Because this book ends on an extremely dark note, and it will carry through to the Rise of with even darker tragedy. So this is the kind of thing you have to keep in mind that the Sith will never have, and what we have to live with. I like it.
Well, it's the ongoing nature of that cycle, which can be depressing if you think of it all the time as like this cyclical thing that you can't change. But I mean, that's getting into like existential stuff. But if you just focus on the fact that this book has been driving home, like especially in Anakin Skywalker's psyche, the idea that everything dies, even stars burn out, they can also be born. You know what I mean? So like that's a nice note to end on, especially leading into A New Hope.
Yeah.
I think that's also the big thing, the big point of contention between both the Jedi and the Sith by clinging to their respective aspects of the Force. The light side is the aspect of life, so the Jedi cling to it thinking it will make them immortal, whereas the dark side is the aspect of death, and the Sith Lords cling to it thinking that they can transcend death by wielding it. But at the end of the day, it's like, nothing is truly immortal. Everything has its day of glory and then dies to make way for new life. And by that same token, death and darkness cannot reign forever, because if there's nothing living, how can there be death?
All right, that is Connor's closing thoughts.
Yep.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. It's all tied into the idea of rebirth and the cycle, as Matt said. The twins are born. The new hope is here. The next chapter will begin.
You have Bail, and you have Obi-Wan, you have Yoda, and you have all of them representing that lone candle to stand against the coming dark times.
One just needs to remember to turn on the light.
which they will eventually.
Cool.
Was that
Let's
a
wrap it
line
up.
only from the movies? That wasn't from the books, was it?
Yeah, it was only from the film.
Yeah.
Well, good on them, because that's a good one.
It is.
Anyway, yeah, this is. You want to do like the normal outro thing,
Yeah,
Kellen, like usually?
That's
Yes.
basically our
Do your
thoughts on
spiel.
Revenge of the Sith. Well, I will say this before we close.
If you
That's
can't
been-
tell that we recommend this book at this point, there's nothing really more.
Though
Yeah,
I will make
we
one
can.
note, I probably would recommend it less because I have forgotten completely about this portion of the book, and I had been holding it up on it because this is the first time I've read it like straight through in a very, very long time. And so I've been skipping all of these other things that I just didn't really care about. So I don't give it like before I was like perfect book. Oh my goodness. Now I'm kind of like, oh, it's a really, really, really great book with some flaws in it. So that's how I stand on it now, just to like preface it. But yes, definitely recommend it. If you even mildly enjoyed Revenge of the Sith, you will appreciate it even more
Yeah.
if you read this thing.
I can get behind that.
Likewise.
I second that.
I can share exactly the same sentiment. Read it. Not perfect, but it's damn close, especially considering what the material it was working with and the restraints it had to put on it. Stover did an amazing job. And also, I hope you enjoyed the review, because you've been waiting for it for a while. So now you can finally stop asking us about it.
It is gonna probably log to be like 9-hour review, basically. I think something like that.
Something close to that. Yeah, it's a long one, but the book deserves it. as
So
I think
don't ask
everyone
us
can agree with.
anymore.
Yeah, I would say anything you want to discuss further on it, comments down below. Yeah, but I mean, if we haven't done it yet, we're not going to. So
We have some discussions coming anyway. So
yeah, there will be
yeah.
some things that we didn't touch on as much that will come up in separate videos. Just need full attention. And yeah,
We'd
until
rather this
then,
not be a 40-hour review.
yeah, precisely. And until then, I'm Retty 4, and I still don't have an outro.
Great Jedi 91. Outros are stupid.
Evan Nova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Gensarai 1, the Force serve you well, for the night is dark and full of terrors.
Antoine Bandele, peace, love, and remember, I'm gonna say be water my
I was about to say, what, you got to say that?
Always. Yeah, no, that's for Avatar. Sorry about that. Watch Avatar.
Goodbye.